Chapter 362. This document was actually just a small matter. It said that there were several villagers from a village outside the city who wanted to work in the Principality of Constantine, so they were reporting to Banta City ahead of time, keeping their status as citizens of Banta City. There had been a few similar things in the past, but Count Stagg didn't care that much. He just gave his approval according to the usual procedure. But when he saw the same report this time, Count Stagg suddenly felt a strong sense of danger in his heart. After carefully thinking about it, he realized why this strong sense of danger had suddenly appeared. The reason was very simple. It was because he had been worried about Banta City's tax revenue over the past few days. Because of the departure of the new flyer, as well as the large and small companies of Banta City following them, as well as the influence of the free trade rights of the business department, Banta City's tax revenue this year would fall to the same level as a few years ago. Losing the large amounts of tax from the large companies, it was like someone had dug out a large piece of Banta City. Now, the citizens of Banta City were actually leaving Banta City. To a traditional noble like Count Stark, this was simply shaking the foundations of Banta City. Count Stark recalled the documents from a few days ago and found a shocking fact. It was that the citizens who were applying to leave Banta City were actually normal farmers from the villages outside the city. For Count Stark, who placed importance on agricultural development, these normal farmers were the foundation that supported Banta City. A single farmer leaving wouldn't affect anything, 10 of them leaving wouldn't affect anything, but if 100 or several hundred of them left, it would have a shocking effect. After recalling the documents from the past few days, Count Stark was surprised to find that in this short period of time, there were close to 100 farmers who had applied. If this trend continued, wouldn't Banta City's foundations really be shaken? Thinking of this, Count Stark looked over the document in his hand again. He found that the report mentioned that these villagers wanted to leave Banta City and work in the Principality of Constantine. They were all prepared to work on the land the new flyer rented from the Principality of Constantine. In other words, they had changed from farming in Banta City to farming in the Principality of Constantine. Count Stark recalled the official documents he had approved a few days ago. The reason given by the ordinary farmers was the same. Recalling the recent actions of New Flyer, a cold glint flashed in his eyes, and he snorted heavily. This damned Sui, how dare he snatch the most important experienced farmers from me? Is he trying to steal my people? Count Stark thought for a moment, then picked up a pen and made a reply on the document, but directly rejected the application. Although in theory, he didn't have this power, as the city lord of Banta City, he had many methods to force these farmers to stay. When he had just finished writing this reply, there was a soft knock on the door of his office. Based on the frequency of the knock, Count Stark could tell that it was his trusted subordinate, Manager Chekhov, so he let him in with a deep voice. After Chekhov came in, he gave a bow to Count Stark. "Sir Count, New Flyer's chairman Sue is here to see you." Count Stark was stunned as he turned to look at the dark sky outside the window. Why did Sue suddenly come to see him at this time? 10 minutes later, Count Stark saw Sue in the small reception room of the city lord's manor. "Chairman Sue, it really is rare for you to come this late at night." Because the city lord's manor had received 3,000 agricultural magic machines from the new flyer during the fall harvest, helping with the fall harvest, Count Stark's attitude towards Sue was much better compared to before. Sue, other than the first time he met Count Stark, every time he met Count Stark, he would be very respectful, and this time was no exception. "Lord City Lord, I'm really sorry to disturb you this late at night," Sue said with a faint smile, "but I will be heading to the Principality of Constantine in 2 days, so there are some things I need to discuss with the Lord City Lord ahead of time." Hearing the words, Principality of Constantine, Count Stark's face sunk. "Very good, Chairman Sue, since you took the initiative to mention the Principality of Constantine, I have a question to ask you." Since your company has rented land in the Principality of Constantine, why don't you hire the local farmers of the Principality of Constantine to help you reclaim it? Why do you have to poach the experienced farmers from Banta City? Do you know that this will have a serious impact on the agricultural development of our Banta City? Su Yi's smile didn't change. I know this, so I came to discuss this with the Lord City Lord to solve this problem. Solve this problem? Count Stark gave a cold snort. It's easy for you to say. Do you know how important these experienced farmers are to our Banta City? If you take them away, it will affect the grain yield of our Banta City. Can you take this crime? Of course I can't take it. Su Yi honestly said with a smile. Grain production is the most important matter of our Lampari kingdom, so even if I'm bold, it's impossible for me to do something like this. But Lord City Lord, if I may be direct, although grain production is related to people, it doesn't need that many people. Count Stark knit his brows. What? You want to sell me your theory of using magic machines to replace people? Su Yi gave a shrug. I don't feel that there's a problem with this theory. If people can do more things with the help of magic machines, wouldn't that be a good thing? Humph, magic machines are dead things and people are alive. The things that people can do, there are many things that magic machines can't replace. Su Yi revealed a faint smile. There were many things that magic machines could do that people couldn't do. But he didn't come this time to argue with Count Stark about this. After thinking about it, he said, Lord City Lord, no matter what, I think that you should admit that with the help of the agricultural magic machines, our Lampari kingdom's grain yield has increased by this much in the past 2 years, right? Count Stark was silent. The agricultural magic machines had helped the Lampari kingdom's grain yield increase. No one could deny this. Even the conservative faction led by the Stag family couldn't deny this because they were one of the biggest beneficiaries. This was the most important reason why, even though the Frestek Chamber of Commerce and Su Yi supported Her Highness Seveni, they were still safe and sound. Of course, I didn't come this time to ask for merit from the Lord City Lord, rather I came to tell you the reason why our new flyer brought the farmers of Banta City to the Principality of Constantine. Su Yi said. Count Stark looked at Su Yi before giving a slight nod. Speak. Su Yi let out a sigh of relief. No matter how much this Count Stark wanted to target him and the new flyer, when it came to Banta City and his benefits, he would patiently listen to their opinions. Lord City Lord, I think that the reason why you're worried that we will bring the farmers of Banta City to the Principality of Constantine is because you feel that this will affect Banta City's grain yield, right? Su Yi asked. Nonsense. Count Stark said with a cold snort. Banta City's farmers are limited to begin with. If you take some away, it would be strange if it didn't affect them. Su Yi revealed a confident smile. I feel that the Lord City Lord doesn't need to worry at all. First, we're only planning on recruiting no more than 2,000 people from Banta City. I think that compared to the 40,000 farmers outside Banta City, this isn't considered much, right? Only 2,000 people? Count Stark was a bit surprised. Didn't your new flyer rent over 100,000 hectares of land in the Principality of Constantine? How could 2,000 people be enough? According to the contract our company signed with the Principality of Constantine, we must recruit no less than 5,000 local workers from the Principality of Constantine. Count Stark slightly knit his brows. Even with 5,000 people, it still isn't enough, right? It's an entire 100,000 hectares. According to my estimates, we'll need at least 10,000 people to barely use it. Su Yi shook his head. Lord City Lord, to be honest, the people of the Principality of Constantine are just too lazy. So I don't expect these 5,000 people to be of any help because their ability to work can't compare to the 2,000 people I recruited from Banta City. Count Stark gave a proud snort. The people of the Principality of Constantine are very lazy, I know this. Your company has to invest in that place. It'll be your skills if you don't suffer a loss. Many thanks for the Lord City Lord's concern. Sui said with a faint smile, Lord City Lord, what I want to say is that for the 100,000 hectares of land to farm, according to my estimates, just the 2,000 people recruited from Banta City can solve it all. That is impossible, Count Stark firmly said. Our Stark family has several hundred years of experience in farming, we understand it more than you. According to my experience, you might be able to cultivate the 100,000 hectares of land with 10,000 people, but 2,000 people? Don't even think about it. Sui revealed a faint smile before suddenly saying, Then Lord City Lord, how about we make a bet? Count Stark revealed a vigilant look. What bet? If our new flyer can't cultivate the 100,000 hectares of land with just 2,000 people, our company will send the 2,000 people back to Banta City and pay compensation for each of them. At the same time, we will pay the City Lord Manor 500,000 gold coins as compensation for affecting Banta City's grain production. What does the Lord City Lord think? Count Stark looked at Sui in surprise. You're serious? I'm very serious. Sui nodded. If the Lord City Lord doesn't believe me, I can represent the new flyer to make a contract with the City Lord Manor as a guarantee. Count Stark looked at Sui in surprise before asking, But how can it be considered completely cultivated? What is the standard? It's very simple. The standard for cultivation is of course the grain yield. The land of the Principality of Constantine is suited to growing rice, so based on Karma City's 2 meals of rice per hectare per year, the 100,000 hectares of land should yield around 200,000 tons of rice per year. If it's lower than this, it'll be considered my loss. You really want to do this? Count Stark looked at the serious Sui with a look of disbelief. To him, it wasn't easy to cultivate the 100,000 hectares of land, but Sui wanted to complete this difficult task with just 2,000 people. This was simply impossible. Of course, this didn't matter to Count Stark. Thinking about it, he asked Sui, Then what if you reach this number? It'll be considered my win, but I hope that the Lord City Lord can agree to a request of mine. Sui said. What request? Count Stark asked in a curious voice. This Sui clearly knew that he was targeting him and the new flyer, but he came here to discuss a request with him. Could it be that his brain was fried? This request is actually very beneficial to Banta City. It's like this. Chapter 363. Sui walked out of the City Lord's manor and looked up at the stars in the night sky. He let out a long white breath and a bitter smile appeared on his lips as he shook his head. It would be good if Count Samo was still Banta City's City Lord. That way he wouldn't need to beat around the bush and consider all kinds of irrelevant things. Count Stark finally agreed to his bet and signed an agreement with him. But in reality, this bet didn't have many benefits for Sui and the new flyer. This was because he wanted Count Stark to agree to his request. He wanted Count Stark to implement the mechanical farming reform in Banta City. This matter was very beneficial to the development of Banta City's agriculture. As for the benefit to Sui and the Frestec Chamber of Commerce, it was to use the mechanized farming system to free up agricultural labor, making it easier for the Frestec Chamber of Commerce to hire more people. But to be honest, with the fame of the new flyer, whether it was the residents of Banta City or the citizens of the Lampari Kingdom who came to Banta City to work, as long as they wanted to find a job, their first choice would be the new flyer, so they didn't lack people. The only thing to worry about was the problem of manpower in other places. Speaking of this, Sui couldn't help feeling emotional. The Lampari Kingdom, or rather the entire Signs, had too few people. Banta City was a small city on the border of the Lampari Kingdom that had less than 50,000 people, and the Lampari Kingdom had less than 5 million people. It couldn't even compare to the population of a slightly larger city on Earth. Although there weren't any statistics for the Signs based on the records in the books, even if the population was a bit better than the Lampari Kingdom, it wasn't that much better. The entire continent added together had around 200–300 million people. It was because of this that Count Stark was very sensitive to the matter of the new flyer attracting the farmers of Banta City to the Principality of Constantine, so he clearly opposed it. Because Banta City only had this many people, if the new flyer poached a part of them, it would have a serious impact on Banta City's agricultural production. But Sui promised that he would only take away less than 2,000 farmers and used actual data to show Count Stark that with the help of the agricultural magic machines, Banta City didn't need as much manpower as before when it came to agricultural production. Count Stark reluctantly agreed to Sui's decision. This bet with Sui had only benefits for Banta City, so Count Stark would naturally agree. Not to mention that Sui promised that even if he won this bet, he would provide 5,000 new agricultural magic machines to Banta City for free through the new flyer, ensuring the agricultural development of Banta City. With such generous conditions, even if Count Stark doubted why Sui would do this, with the guarantee of the contract in black and white, Count Stark still agreed in the end. But even like this, when the two were signing the contract, there was an intense debate before they reluctantly came up with the first draft. Thinking of the doubtful look on Count Stark's face, how could Sui not give a bitter smile? In order for the magic machine industry to develop in a good environment, he had spent a lot of effort. Shaking his head, he threw away the complaints about Count Stark and the stubborn conservatives led by the Stark family. Sui began to organize what he needed to do next. After obtaining the guarantee from Count Stark that he wouldn't stop the new flyer from recruiting farmers from Banta City, the next step for the new flyer was to recruit 2,000 farmers from Banta City as soon as possible and bring them to the Principality of Constantine to settle down. Then they would start reclaiming the 100,000 hectares of land. It was already the end of November, so if they didn't hurry, it was very likely that they wouldn't be able to finish planting before the spring harvest. If they missed a season's harvest, Sui didn't dare guarantee that he would win the bet with Count Stark. It was a good thing that the Principality of Constantine's environment was blessed by the heavens. It was a tropical environment that ensured that they could still farm in the winter, unlike the Lampari kingdom that could only hibernate in the winter. Moreover, according to his observations, Sui confirmed that they could farm 3 times a year in the Principality of Constantine. Just based on this, their grain income was much higher than the Lampari kingdoms. This was where Sui was confident in his bet with Count Stark. Other than taking the time to reclaim the 100,000 hectares of land, the new flyer had already begun mining the 3 iron mines they bought in the Principality of Constantine. According to the reports of the dwarven craftsmen sent earlier, the iron ore in the 3 iron mines were high-quality ores. This meant that the iron content of the 3 iron mines was much higher than what they had expected. Being able to buy these 3 mines from the Principality of Constantine for 1,350,000 gold coins, the new flyer had gained a large advantage. At the same time, through Anklo's connections, Sui had also bought 7 magic crystal mines from several large nobles in the Principality of Constantine. Because magic crystal mines could be seen everywhere in the signs and there were only a few of them, this thing wasn't valued that much. In the Principality of Constantine, where there were few magicians, no one cared about them. So New Flyer wanting to buy magic crystal mines was a pleasant surprise for the nobles of the Principality of Constantine. In the end, New Flyer only spent 500,000 gold coins to buy the 7 largest magic crystal mines in the Principality of Constantine. Many people were confused by this transaction, but Sui was very clear that not long after, magic crystals would become an important resource that everyone would fight over. He had made a large profit from this transaction. Other than the matter of the Principality of Constantine, the most important thing was the investment in the Black Rice Wasteland. After the 4 companies worked together to deal a heavy blow to the Black Rice Wasteland's Beastman Independent Army, the 4 companies had quickly built a small base in the Black Rice Wasteland. Now that a month had passed, the base was already in its embryonic form. According to their calculations, it would be ready for use at the beginning of next year. Chairman Renersa, who was in charge of the base in the Black Rice Wasteland, had already begun recruiting the Beastmen tribes in the Black Rice Wasteland. Other than the 4 nearby Beastmen tribes that had an agreement with the 4 companies, there were quite a few Beastmen tribes in the depths of the Black Rice Wasteland that expressed their willingness to work in the human factories. According to this trend, as long as the base was built and the factories of the 4 companies were put into use, the influence of this base would reach as far as 100 kilometers into the Black Rice Wasteland. Sui believed that in less than 2 years, this area affected by the radiation would be integrated into the human order. If they followed this step, all the beastmen of the Black Rice Wasteland would be taken into the factories of the human companies sooner or later, completely solving the problem of the Lampari Kingdom. After that, it was the matter of the north. Sui tilted his head and looked to the northeast. Thinking of the matter of investing in Soul City, Sui couldn't help thinking of Soul City's city lord Count Samo. If Samo Count wasn't suddenly transferred away and stayed in Banta City to support Sui and the new flyer, in just half a year, Banta City would have changed. It wouldn't have stagnated like it was now and even regressed. Looking to the northeast, Sui saw Princess Caroline's appearance in his mind. This princess who didn't lose to Steel in terms of appearance, but was countless times more bold than Steel, had left a deep impression on Sui. It wasn't because of her appearance or the naked temptation she had for Sui, rather it was because Sui could see Seveni's shadow on her. Sui could see that although Princess Caroline seemed a bit frivolous on the surface, she really wanted the Drake Duchy to become stronger. So in the few days she had been visiting the Falling Rain Valley, she kept asking questions, trying her best to absorb all the new things she saw. When Princess Caroline was in this state, the charm she released was even more captivating than when she was seducing Sui. Thinking of the final words Princess Caroline said to him before leaving, Sui's heart couldn't help skipping a beat. He quickly shook his head and threw away these distracting thoughts. After calming down, Sui looked around and headed to the new Flyers Service Center in Banta City. This was his habit. Every time he came to Banta City, he would go to the service center to listen to the report. Because the service center directly faced the customers of the new Flyer, he could receive the most direct feedback from the customers. Listening to this feedback, Sui could make the most appropriate decisions on how to improve the product. When he turned a corner, there was a figure that swayed as they walked out of an alley. Before they even took 2 steps, their bodies suddenly turned soft and they fell to the side of the wall. Then they fell to the ground against the wall, not moving at all. Sui was stunned. He quickly went over and squatted down to take a look, but he found that this thin and weak figure was a girl. Based on her appearance, she looked quite young, perhaps around 20 years old. Based on her closed eyes and weak breathing, it seemed like she had fainted. Sui grabbed her shoulder and shook her a few times, but the girl didn't wake up at all. Looking around and not seeing anyone else on the street, Sui hesitated for a bit before helplessly shaking his head. He leaned over to pick up the girl and cast a wind control spell on himself, quickly flying out of the city to the Falling Star Manor. Chapter 364. Early the next morning, Sui woke up on time. Looking at his surroundings, Sui realized that he had returned to the Falling Star Manor to rest last night. The bedroom door creaked open, and Liz and Linda walked in. Although Sui didn't spend much time in the Falling Star Manor, the two firmly remembered Sui's habit of waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning under Vivian's instructions. Therefore, every time Sui came back to rest, the two would come to help him wake up. "Where's the girl I brought back yesterday? How is it now?" Sui washed up early in the morning while casually asking this. Vivian arranged for her to sleep in the guest room. She shouldn't have woken up yet. Liz replied. Sui nodded to express his understanding. He quickly finished washing up and did some simple exercises as usual. After warming up his body, he went to the dining room with Liz and Linda. The breakfast prepared by Liz and Linda had already been placed in the dining room. Sue naturally didn't stand on ceremony as he sat down and started eating. Halfway through the meal, the dining room door was pushed open again. Sue raised his head and his eyes suddenly lit up. When he brought the girl back last night, the street wasn't very bright and Sue didn't take a closer look. Therefore, he only knew that the girl had a pretty face and didn't pay attention to anything else. Now that he saw her again, he discovered that the girl had changed into a new set of clothes and had clearly just taken a bath. Because she had woken up from a deep sleep, she looked much more energetic, as if she was a completely different person. She was no longer as weak as she was when Sue saw her last night. Instead, she looked radiant. Sue secretly compared her to Steele and Princess Caroline, the two most beautiful girls he had ever seen. He discovered that although the girl in front of him wasn't as eye-catching as Steele and Princess Caroline in terms of appearance, she was still a rare beauty with delicate facial features and fair and tender skin. In addition, there was a trace of shyness and timidity on her face, which made it easy for people to have a desire to protect her. In the eyes of ordinary people, her attractiveness wasn't much inferior to Steele and Princess Caroline. After the girl walked into the dining room, her gaze swept across the faces of the three people in the dining room and naturally fell on Sue. Facing Sue's gaze, the girl's face blushed slightly. Then, she lowered her head slightly and walked up to Sue. She half-squatted in front of Sue and gave him a standard ladylike bow. "Thank you for your help. May Stikala's blessings be with you forever and bless your health forever." Sue nodded and didn't say much. He pointed to the empty chair beside the table and said, "You're welcome. Please have a seat. I think you must be hungry." The girl's face turned red again. After giving Sue a bow, she sat down in the seat to Sue's right under Vivian's arrangement. It could be seen that the girl was indeed very hungry. When Liz and Linda placed the prepared food in front of her, her eyes revealed a clear desire. But even so, she still lowered her head and closed her eyes. She clasped her hands together and made a gesture similar to a prayer. Then, she smiled at Sue and picked up the knife and fork to eat. Although her movements were obviously faster due to hunger, it could be seen that this girl's upbringing was extremely strict. All of her movements were meticulous and her etiquette was flawless. When she ate, she almost didn't make the slightest sound. Sue had finished his breakfast and didn't want to disturb the girl. Seeing that she seemed to be eating for a while, he got up and prepared to leave. Who knew that as soon as he stood up, the girl seemed to be taken aback. She hurriedly put down the knife and fork in her hand and stood up in a fluster. "Go ahead and eat. Don't worry about me." Sue waved his hand and was about to leave. The girl wanted to push the chair away, but accidentally knocked her knee into the corner of the chair in her panic. She immediately scrunched up her face in pain and squatted down. Sue couldn't help but laugh. He shook his head and gestured for Vivian to help her sit back down on the chair. "Why are you in such a hurry?" Sue asked with a smile. "I think you should still be very weak now. You must eat more breakfast. Don't worry." The girl's pain subsided a little. She raised her head and looked at Sue. She blushed and lowered her head slightly. She hesitated for a moment and asked, "I don't know your name yet." "Oh, my name is Sue." Sue replied indifferently. "What about you? What's your name?" "My name is Teresa, Teresa. When she said her surname, the girl's voice obviously lowered a lot. Seeing the expression on the girl's face, Sue thought for a moment and sat back down. He asked seriously, "Miss Ika, you seem to have encountered some trouble. If you don't mind, you can tell me. I'll see if there's anything I can help you with." Teresa Ika shook her head gently and didn't answer. Sue shrugged. He thought that in front of him, the girl might not be willing to reveal her thoughts. He gave Vivian a look and left the restaurant. Vivian followed him out and Sue brought her to a corner as he said in a low voice, "Leave her here for a few days and let her recover before leaving. Also, give her some money when she leaves. Let me think, give her 100 gold coins first. She should refuse, so you can secretly put it on her. If she has any other difficulties that you can't solve, then tell me. Do you understand? Is that all?" Vivian blinked and asked, "Master, she must have encountered a lot of trouble. Otherwise, a noble lady like her wouldn't become like this. Please help her." "That requires her to be willing to say." Sue shrugged. "Anyway, you can ask her in the next few days. If she is willing to say and I have the ability to help her, then of course I will help her. But if she isn't willing to say it, I can't help her even if I want to, right?" Vivian nodded and rolled her eyes. "All right, then I will properly ask her. She must be in a lot of trouble, and Master will definitely be able to help her." Seeing Vivian's confident expression, Sue didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He pinched Vivian's little face before turning to leave the Falling Star Manor. Although he could see that this girl named Teresa IKA was in trouble, he indeed didn't have the time or energy to waste on a little girl like her. Rescuing her and keeping her in the Falling Star Manor to ensure her safety and livelihood was already the most benevolent thing he could do. Of course, if this Teresa IKA was willing to tell Sue that she was in trouble and Sue could help her, then there was no harm in doing a good deed. As for now, he would leave it to Vivian to take care of. After leaving the Falling Star Manor, Sue went to the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's service center in Banta City according to his original plan. After hearing some customer feedback, he returned to the Falling Rain Valley. They were only 60 kilometers apart, but Banta City and the Falling Rain Valley seemed like two completely different places. It was like Banta City had already lost its vitality, but the Falling Rain Valley was bustling with activity. Not to mention the factories of the New Flyer in the Falling Rain Valley, just the factories of the small companies outside the Falling Rain Valley were also bustling with activity. As the New Flyer and the small companies that followed the New Flyer to the Falling Rain Valley kept moving in, the living facilities of the Falling Rain Valley and the surrounding areas were gradually completed. Moreover, with Suyi's plans, he had already divided this place into an industrial area and a living area. So even if there were large amounts of factories that came here in a short period of time, it wasn't messy at all. Rather, it was very orderly, with roads that had already been built. Not only was the industrial area filled with people, it was very lively. There were also various shops in the living area and business was very good. Regarding this scene, the Banta Times even said that the Falling Rain Valley was gradually becoming a new city, and it seemed like it had even more potential than Banta City. Because the New Flyer was here. Sue had just jumped out of the Fersen Carriage Company's public carriage and was waving goodbye to the workers of the various factories that he talked to when Freeman appeared out of nowhere. "Chairman Sue, you just came back from Banta City, so you shouldn't have had lunch yet, right? Can you give me face and let me treat you to lunch?" Seeing Freeman's awkward appearance that didn't know where to put his hands, Sue found it a bit funny. "Hey, Freeman, when did you learn how to flatter me? This isn't like you. If you have something to say, just say it, there's no need to do all this nonsense." Freeman was even more awkward. He gave a few silly laughs before scratching his head and saying, "Chairman Sue, this can't be considered flattery. My company and I have been taken care of by you many times, so treating you to a meal is normal, right? How about it, are you willing to give me face?" Sue couldn't help shaking his head with a smile. "All right, since you're this sincere, I'll let you treat me once." Freeman was instantly overjoyed. He pulled Sue and entered a newly opened restaurant in the living area of the Falling Rain Valley. It could be seen that this wasn't Freeman's first time here, as he brought Sue to a private room on the second floor. He called for a bottle of wine and poured a cup for himself and Sue. Without saying anything, he directly drank it all. Sui revealed a smile. He took a sip of wine before putting down the cup and saying, I still have things to do in the afternoon, so I can't drink too much. Alright, Freeman, we are old friends, so just say it if you have something to say. You're very clear on my temper, as long as I can help you, I definitely won't decline. Right. Chairman Su, you've always taken care of me, I understand. But this matter. Freeman gave a laugh, but his expression was still a bit awkward. After hesitating for a bit, he came closer to Sui and asked in a low voice, that, Chairman Su, do you think our Ireland Chamber of Commerce can also produce magic fans? Chapter 365. Sui looked at Freeman in surprise. Why would you have this idea? Freeman rubbed his head and replied with a laugh. Actually, the reason is very simple. Isn't making a complete machine more profitable than making parts? Sui rolled his eyes. Making a complete machine is harder than making parts. You're doing well in making parts, and I think you have a lot of prospects, so why do you suddenly want to change? Freeman looked at Sui's disapproving expression and carefully asked, That means you don't approve of us making the magic fan? This. Sui seriously thought about it before shaking his head. It's not that I don't approve of it. After all, the Ireland Chamber of Commerce is your own company, so I can't make this decision for you. But I must remind you that making a complete machine and making parts are two different things. Although your Ireland Chamber of Commerce's parts are quite good and your craftsmanship is quite good, there are many things you need to pay attention to for a complete machine, and it has a high requirement for the technology. Are you really confident in making it? I don't dare to say that I have 100% confidence. Freeman honestly shook his head. But we feel that we should give it a try. What do you think? If you really have made up your mind to give it a try, I will support you. But if this new attempt fails, it is very likely that you will suffer a heavy loss. Do you have the confidence and mental preparation to suffer a large loss? Sui asked. Freeman forcefully nodded, yes. Everyone is very clear that if we want to make a complete machine, there will be many difficulties. But if we don't even dare try, that would be too unreasonable. So after discussing this, we've decided to try making a magic fan. Seeing the serious expression on Freeman's face, Sui was silent for a bit before giving a slight nod. All right, since you've made your decision, I can't say anything else. Speak, how do you need me to support you? Do I give you all the technology for making the magic fan? To be honest, I don't think that you can afford it because when the technology is transferred to the other companies in Banta City, it costs at least 100,000 gold coins. With your current strength, it's not enough. Yes, I understand. But Chairman Su, we are not planning on buying the magic fan production technology from you, we just want to buy the magic array-related technology. Oh! Sui was surprised. Although the magic array technology is the core technology of the magic fan, you can't make a magic fan with just this thing. From what I can see, for the magic fan, the most important thing is the mechanical structure and external components other than the magic array. We are confident that we can overcome all of this, Freeman said confidently. Our Ireland Chamber of Commerce has been in the component processing business for more than a year. Now, everyone is very confident in producing qualified components. I won't say this, but we have already figured out the structure of the various Xinfei brand magic fans. Everyone believes that as long as we work hard enough, we can even make a magic fan that is the same as the Xinfei brand magic fan. You really are confident, Sui said with a smile. But Freeman, I feel that you're thinking too simply of this thing. Any magic machine is not as simple as being made from different components, there is also a lot of mechanical knowledge involved. If you can't grasp this, I'm afraid you'll meet many difficulties when making the magic fan. I know. Freeman was still filled with confidence. But I and everyone want to give it a try. Chairman Su, are you willing to give us this chance? Sui revealed a faint smile. Of course, I'm willing. To be honest, being able to hear this idea from your mouth, I'm very happy. Actually, I won't hide it from you, if it's possible. I hope that there will be more companies that have the courage to produce higher-level magic machines like you, because only like this can the magic machine industry develop even faster. Really? Hearing Sui agree, Freeman's face was filled with pleasant surprise. He grabbed Sui's hand and forcefully shook it as he asked, "Then Chairman Su, are you willing to give us the magic array technology for the magic fan?" After saying this, Freeman revealed a shy and awkward look. "But, Chairman Su, you know that our company doesn't have that much money, so can you sell it to us at a cheaper price?" "All right." Sui nodded. "Since I've agreed, of course I won't make it hard for you." Sui raised another finger. 10,000 gold coins is the fee for our new flyer to transfer the magic array technology to your Ireland Chamber of Commerce. How about it? Do you think this is acceptable? The worry on Freeman's face disappeared and he broke out in laughter. Yes, of course. It's only 10,000 gold coins, this is too cheap. Chairman Su, I won't hide it from you, our original estimate was. Freeman suddenly stopped. Seeing Freeman's expression, Sui couldn't help shaking his head with a smile. Didn't Kovac warn you not to tell me your bottom price? Freeman rubbed his hands in embarrassment. After hesitating a bit, he made his decision and said, "If it was up to me, that kid Kovac was thinking too much. What is there to hide in front of Chairman Su? Actually, we estimated that we would need at least 30,000 gold coins to get it. I never thought that you would be this generous, only taking 10,000 gold coins from us. This really is too cheap." Sui shook his head. 10,000 gold coins and 30,000 gold coins, it doesn't make much of a difference to me. But for you, the difference is too big. Since I said that I hope that you can reach a higher level in your magic machine research, then I have to think for you. If I let you save 20,000 gold coins, you can invest this money into your research and avoid many detours. Freeman's expression was full of gratitude. He sighed with emotion. Chairman Su, I have to say that you are a great benefactor to me and my brothers. If it wasn't for you, my brothers and I would still be ordinary farmers in Ireland Village. How could we have our own company and earn tens of thousands of gold coins every year? Don't say anything unnecessary. Sui waved his hand. Listen well, the technology can be transferred to you, but since you have already made up your mind to do other research, then don't expect me to help you in other areas. This time, the Ireland Chamber of Commerce has to do it on your own, otherwise I will be completely disappointed in you. Do you understand what I mean? Freeman hurriedly nodded. I understand. Chairman Su, you are also thinking for our long-term development. Good, then this matter is settled. Sui said. Make some preparations in the next 2 days and formally transfer the technology to our company. I will inform General Manager Kennard and Dean Evita and have them approve this application. Freeman's face was full of gratitude. After pausing, he said, Other than this, Chairman Su, can you help us with something else? That. We also want to recruit a few magicians. Can you introduce a few to us? Freeman asked a bit uneasily. This isn't a small favor. Sui looked at Freeman with a gaze of deep meaning. Also, Freeman, it looks like your Ireland Chamber of Commerce is quite ambitious. Freeman chuckled, tacitly agreeing to it. All right, the magicians with real strength probably won't be willing to go to a small company like yours. I'll give you a suggestion. Among the magicians who graduated from Baron Ricto Magic Academy this year, there might still be some who haven't found a job yet. You can give it a try. Freeman immediately understood and nodded with a smile on his face. After eating lunch under Freeman's endless thanks, Sui finally returned to the small building he and Steele had been living in for a while. He found that Steele had been waiting for him for a long time. Didn't you say you would be back for lunch? Why are you only back now? Steele sniffed Sui's body and smelled the scent of alcohol. She knit her brows and asked, "What? Who did you go drinking with?" "After I got off the carriage, I bumped into Chairman Freeman of the Ireland Chamber of Commerce. He took me to eat a meal and we talked about a few things." Sue gave a rough explanation and then casually asked about Steele's trip to Anvil City. "Overall it's pretty good." Steele pulled Sue to sit down and slightly knit her brows as she replied, "The kingdom's parliament isn't too strict with the dwarves and elves when they get a work permit. They also completely agreed to let me be their representative. The New Moon Chamber of Commerce is the only company in the kingdom that has the right to act as a representative. But there are many voices of opposition in the kingdom's parliament regarding the beastmen being hired as workers." "Oh? What kind of opposition?" "Basically, they're worried about the beastmen's savage nature. Even if they're willing to work for a human company, if they reveal their true nature, it'll be very easy for them to harm the humans," Steele said. "Their worries aren't completely unreasonable, but they don't realize that the times are different now. They can't use the old ways to look at the problem." Sue sighed. After thinking for a bit, he asked Steele, "I remember that Anvil City has a very famous song and dance troupe? Or is it a drama troupe?" Steele felt very strange why Sue would suddenly ask this question. She looked at him in confusion and replied, "It's the Morgana Opera Troupe." "It's an opera troupe, not a song and dance troupe or drama troupe." "Oh, opera, that's even better." Sue smiled and then asked, "Steele, are you interested in opening your own opera troupe and surpass the Morgana Opera Troupe?" Steele was even more confused and asked back, "Why are you suddenly talking about opera troupes? What do you want to say?" Sue laughed, "Nothing. I was just thinking that if you opened an opera troupe with humans, elves, dwarves, and all kinds of beastmen, and performed in front of the important people of Anvil City, wouldn't it make them less wary of other races?" Steele's eyes suddenly lit up. Chapter 366. When winter came, the Principality of Constantine wouldn't be as cold as the Lampari Kingdom. Rather, because the temperature had dropped, it wasn't as hot and humid as usual and it was much cooler. Every year during this season, because he didn't need to worry about hurricanes and tsunamis, Swain Wine would leave his giant manor outside Wine City and come to another manor by the sea to spend a more leisurely winter. But it was different from previous years. This year's head wine brought his subordinates and maids along the sea on the second day, heading northeast for around 20 kilometers before coming to an endless plain. Looking at the endless land in front of him where there were people busy controlling the agricultural magic machines, head wine couldn't help feeling emotional. The people from the Lampari Kingdom were much more hard-working than the people from the duchy. The 1,000 people that the new flyer hired from the Lampari Kingdom had been working since dawn half a month ago, only going home when it was completely dark. With their hard work, this piece of land that was originally just a piece of wasteland that no one cared about at all was quickly reclaimed into a rough shape in just over half a month. It looked like it could be used for farming. Every time he saw this, head wine couldn't help feeling secretly happy. This 100,000 hectares of land was just worthless land in his hands, but after renting it to the new flyer, not only did the new flyer pay him 300,000 gold coins each year, they also promised to give him 30% of the harvest each year. This meant that he could just sit here and do nothing each year and he could get 300,000 gold coins and 30% of the harvest. According to the estimates of the new flyer's chairman Sue, if this land was completely reclaimed, they could harvest at least 100,000 tons of rice each year. 30% would be 30,000 tons. It had to be known, last year, he had only harvested a bit over 20,000 tons of grain from his territory. Every time he thought of this, head wine couldn't help praising himself in his heart. Then thinking of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's promise to open a large canned fruit processing factory and a large rubber processing factory, as well as building large amounts of roads on this land, connecting all the roads in the territory, head wine's heart was filled with joy. Let those short-sighted idiots from the south die of regret. Look at how far-sighted I, Swain Wine, as long as I cooperate with the new flyer, my territory will surpass those bastards from the south. Patriarch Wine smiled as he glanced at the busy land. Suddenly, the veins on his forehead bulged and a trace of anger flashed across his face. As far as he could see, not everyone was busy working on this piece of land. There were quite a few people who were clearly slacking off, only pushing the agricultural magic machines in their hands to reclaim the land. Seeing the lazy appearance of these people, Head Wine gave a cold snort. He took a whip from a subordinate beside him and walked in front of the person closest to him. Without waiting for that person to react, he raised his hand and whipped down. After that person was stunned, a look of fear appeared on his face, but he didn't dodge at all. He just hugged his head and squatted down, waiting for the whip to fall. Pa! The whip fell onto that person's back, and with a crisp sound, the clothes on that person's back were torn and a bloody mark appeared on his back. It could be seen how much strength Head Wine had used. The crisp sound attracted everyone's attention. The farmers who came from Banta City were stunned as they watched Head Wine's actions. They couldn't take it, but no one dared to say a thing. They were normal citizens in the Lampari Kingdom. They had seen many nobles bullying the citizens. If this was Banta City, perhaps they could resist, but in the Principality of Constantine, they didn't have any thoughts of meddling in other people's business. Pa! The whip fell onto that person's back again and again as Head Wine kept cursing. Damn cheap bastard. It's rare for the new flyer to take a fancy to you and let you work here. That's your good luck. You actually dare to be lazy for me. Do you believe I won't beat you to death? After a while, that person's back was covered in bloody marks. When the whip fell down, there were drops of flesh and blood. The scene looked very tragic. That person squatting on the ground was about to collapse bit by bit, like he was about to faint, but there was a loud shout that came from the distance. Stop! Head Wine angrily glared at him. Who dared to stop him from teaching this damn cheap bastard a lesson? After a while, the anger on his face turned into a smile, and he threw away the whip in his hand to come forward. Chairman Cantona, good morning. Are you still busy urging them to work? Seeing Head Wine's expression change, Cantona's anger was stuck in his throat, but he couldn't let it out. After pausing, he swallowed it back down and forced himself to reveal a smile to Head Wine. I'm busy. Head Wine, you are. Cantona pointed at the person on the ground who was still twitching. Oh, it's nothing. I just saw a fellow who was lazy and didn't work, so I taught him a lesson for you. Head Wine replied with a smile while kicking the person on the ground. This damn cheap bastard, I finally found such a good job for him, but he doesn't do it properly. Don't you think he deserves to die? Cantona's face twitched as he thought that a noble like you who only knows how to bully the citizens of his territory deserves to die. But this was the other side's territory, so Cantona forced down the anger in his heart. He forced out a smile as he said, This Head Wine, he is indeed in the wrong for being lazy, but you shouldn't beat him like this, right? Look at him like this, how can he keep working? What are you worried about? Head Wine curled his lips and said in a voice of disdain, This damn cheap bastard, there's no pity in beating him to death. If you're worried about not having enough people to work, it's very simple, I'll just catch a few more people for you. Cantona's eyes twitched, and he almost couldn't help cursing out. It was a good thing that since he established the Cantona Chamber of Commerce, he had seen many things and experienced many things. He was much more shrewd than before, so he endured it in the end. Head Wine, you can't say it like this. He is now hired by the new flyer in name, helping the new flyer develop this piece of land. So strictly speaking, he should be considered an employee of the new flyer. Even if he is lazy and doesn't work, you should let the new flyer decide how to deal with him, don't you think? Cantona knew that if he brought out his Cantona Chamber of Commerce, Head Wine wouldn't put them in his eyes, so he deliberately emphasized that the workers hired from the Principality of Constantine belonged to the new flyer in name. As expected, after hearing Cantona's words, Head Wine knit his brows and thought about it before saying with a nod, "All right, since these cheap bastards have been given to the new flyer, then how to deal with them will be decided by Chairman Sue. I shouldn't interfere. But Chairman Cantona, tell Chairman Sue for me that he can deal with these cheap bastards as he pleases. Even if he beats them all to death, there's no problem at all. Let him deal with them as he pleases, there's no need to worry about anything." Cantona was too lazy to be angry with him, so he nodded in agreement. Then he called over 2 people to treat the unlucky fellow who had stopped twitching and had clearly fainted. When the other people left, the hostility on Head Wine's face faded. He pointed at the land being reclaimed in front of him with a smile and asked Cantona, "Chairman Cantona, with this speed, how long will it take to finish this land?" If nothing unexpected happens, I think it'll take less than a month to reclaim it all." Cantona thought about it before replying. "If we move a bit faster, we should be able to start sowing at the beginning of next year. With the climate of your Principality of Constantine, you should be able to harvest the first batch of grain next spring." Definitely. Head Wine nodded. "Chairman Cantona, you can be assured. Our Principality of Constantine can't compare to your Lampari kingdom, but this kind of land is much better than your Lampari kingdom. I'm not joking, the 100,000 hectares of land I've rented to New Flyer are all good farmland. As long as you take care of it and plant the seeds, you don't need to care about anything else, you'll be able to grow crops in a few months. Do you believe me?" Cantona looked at Head Wine. He wanted to say, "Since your Principality of Constantine is so suited for growing crops, why are you wasting so much good farmland here?" But thinking of the fellow who had been whipped unconscious by Head Wine, Cantona suppressed this question in his heart. Actually, after seeing that fellow being taught a lesson by Head Wine, even if Cantona couldn't bear it, he was still a bit happy. Before coming to the Principality of Constantine, when Sue was talking to Cantona about the Principality of Constantine, he had reminded Cantona that the people of the Principality of Constantine were very lazy. So when reclaiming the 100,000 hectares of land, they shouldn't trust the 5,000 locals hired from the Principality of Constantine and should give most of the work to the farmers from Banta City. Cantona thought that Sue was exaggerating at first because they had hired 5,000 locals, which was more than the people they brought from Banta City. The main force of reclaiming land should be the locals of the Principality of Constantine. But when Cantona really came to the Principality of Constantine, he found that Sue's description of the Principality of Constantine's farmers was much lighter. Actually, the farmers that Head Wine sent were lazy beyond Cantona's imagination. The farmers from Banta City started working as soon as the sun came up and only finished when it was dark, with only 2 hours of rest in between. But the workers of the Principality of Constantine had to wait until the sun was in the sky before they started working, so when the sun was close to the horizon, they wanted to stop work. Moreover, they were very crafty when they were working, finding all kinds of excuses to be lazy. Cantona had made a rough calculation and found that in the same day of work, a farmer from Banta City could reclaim 5 to 7 mu of land with the agricultural magic machines. The farmers of the Principality of Constantine could only reclaim 1 mu of land. Although part of the reason was that the farmers from Banta City were more used to using the agricultural magic machines, they had already been here for half a month, so this wasn't the main reason. So in short, the workers of the Principality of Constantine were just too lazy. Chapter 367. These words naturally couldn't be said to Head Wine, because the reason why the Frestec Chamber of Commerce hired these farmers was because they had signed an agreement with Head Wine. It could be considered helping Head Wine solve the living problems of the 5,000 people in his territory. Moreover, according to Sue's investigation and Cantona's private investigation, Although these 5,000 people worked here and received wages from the new flyer, they were still considered citizens of Headwine's territory. Even most of their wages had to be given to Headwine. So Headwine could teach these lazy workers a lesson without any scruples. Rather, Cantona was dissatisfied with this lazy fellow, but he still had to protect him. After all, to Headwine, killing one didn't affect him at all, he could just change to another person. For Cantona, even if this person was lazy, he had gradually familiarized himself with the agricultural magic machines in half a month, so he could be considered a skilled worker. Even if he was dissatisfied with the attitude of these farmers, he could at least play a role. If it was someone else, they would have to start from the beginning. Looking at Headwine's fat face, Cantona's heart was filled with emotions. This kind of disgusting, cruel, and lecherous noble, because he controlled this land, he could earn large amounts of income from the new flyer each year. Other than the rent of 300,000 gold coins and 30% of the harvest, each of the 5,000 workers had a monthly wage of 5 gold coins. Out of a total of 25,000 gold coins a month, he took away at least 20,000 gold coins a month, which added up to over 200,000 gold coins a year. Calculating it all, just by renting out these 100,000 hectares of land, Headwine earned around 600,000 gold coins a year. Thinking of this large number, Cantona couldn't help feeling pain in his heart. If he didn't give this money to Headwine and used it in other places, how many things could he do? But Cantona was very clear that this was the entrance fee for the new flyer to open the door to the Principality of Constantine. But it was probably only someone as bold as Sue who dared to make this decision, right? At least Cantona didn't dare. Chairman Cantona, I still have a question. Headwine's voice pulled Cantona back from his thoughts. Patriarch Wine, do you have any questions? Please ask directly. Cantona reacted and quickly said with a smile. Headwine pointed at the agricultural magic machines working in the field and asked, These agricultural magic machines should be made by New Flyer, right? I wonder, would Chairman Sue be willing to sell some of these things to me? Cantona gave a laugh, of course. Headwine, you think that Chairman Sue had us bring all these agricultural magic machines just to reclaim this land? To tell you the truth, Chairman Sue has told me in private that we have to seize every chance to spread the benefits of these agricultural magic machines. It would be best if every noble in the Principality of Constantine could use them. Do you think he's willing to sell? Headwine revealed a smile. It's good that he's willing to sell. Very good, Chairman Cantona. Help me tell Chairman Sue that I want to buy 1,000 agricultural magic machines from New Flyer. I hope that he can help me solve this problem as soon as possible. Cantona shook his head with a faint smile. There's no need for me to tell him. Chairman Sue will be here in a few days. Wouldn't it be better if you tell him yourself? Chairman Sue is really coming? Headwine revealed a look of pleasant surprise. Great. When Chairman Sue comes, I will definitely properly entertain him. Seeing Headwine's face squeeze together with a smile, Cantona couldn't help shaking his head. It was no wonder Headwine was this happy when he heard that Sue was coming. If it was anyone else who heard that someone who earned them 600,000 gold coins a year was coming, they would definitely be as excited as Headwine. After discussing the problems of this land with Cantona for a bit, Headwine was satisfied as he left with his subordinates and maids. Cantona thought about it before heading towards the sea. The coast next to this land gradually changed its appearance at this time. In addition to building a breakwater of more than 10 meters high about 1 kilometer away from the coastline, a road was also built directly from this large piece of land all the way to a port that was under construction by the sea. There was a small bay on the coast, which happened to block the monsoon and the huge invasion, forming a natural harbor on the coast. When Sue had Cantona bring people to reclaim the land he rented, he had the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce send a construction team to build a harbor here. Now that half a month had passed, the harbor was already taking shape. A steel frame had already been built on the pier that led to the sea. According to manager Riley of the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce, who was in charge of this project, they just needed to pour the cement and the harbor would take shape. But the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce didn't have any experience in building a cement pier, and adding in the fact that it was very difficult to build a pier, manager Riley wasn't optimistic about the progress. It was a good thing that Sue-E didn't rush them and gave them a maximum of 5 years. This made Cantona and manager Riley very confused when they talked in private. Since Sue-E wasn't in a rush, why did he want to build a pier this early? The more important thing was, how would building a pier here help the new flyer? The new flyer didn't even have a boat. Not to mention that even if they had a boat, there were many rivers in the signs, so why would they go to the endless sea that was filled with hidden dangers? The two of them had been in the Principality of Constantine for a while, and although they had seen many local fishing boats go out to sea, the furthest they went was no more than 10 kilometers from the coast. Even the most experienced fishermen didn't dare go any further. Who knows? The two of us can't compare to Chairman Sue's foresight, perhaps he has other plans. Manager Riley gave a shrug with an indifferent look. Anyway, we're just taking his money to do things for him. As for what he's thinking, we don't need to care. At least I've known Chairman Sue for 2 years, and I've never seen him do anything stupid. This time won't be an exception. Cantona looked at manager Riley with a bit of surprise. Although he admired Chairman Sue very much, he couldn't compare to manager Riley's blind admiration. Don't look at me like this. Even our Chairman Cruz is filled with admiration for Chairman Sue, so Cantona, you don't need to doubt it. Manager Riley said with a laugh, Look, if it wasn't for Chairman Sue's skills, how could a small company like your Cantona Chamber of Commerce take over 100,000 hectares of farmland? 100,000 hectares. How much farmland does our Banta City have? You have more farmland than all the nobles in Banta City right now. Cantona gave a bitter laugh. There is enough farmland, but I'm worried if I can make money from it. Manager Riley rolled his eyes at Cantona. What are you worried about? The rent for the land isn't paid by your Cantona Chamber of Commerce. You just need to organize people to cultivate the land and then hand over the grain to the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. Wouldn't the rest be earned by you? I'm not worried about myself, I'm worried about the new flyer. Cantona shook his head, because after calculating it, I've found that even if we can harvest 3 crops of rice each year, the new flyer will still suffer a loss in the end. You said that you've never seen Chairman Sue suffer a loss before, but this matter. At least it seems like he will suffer a loss. Relax. Manager Riley patted Cantona's shoulder. I just said it, Chairman Sue is definitely stronger than us. Now, from your point of view, he might be losing money, but this is different from losing money. This is because money represents many things. Chairman Sue might lose a bit of money because of this, but he will definitely gain something else. Only the two of us can't see it right now. Cantona looked at manager Riley in a speechless manner, thinking that his confidence in Sue-E really was blind. But thinking about it, it didn't matter to him. The Cantona Chamber of Commerce was just a small and weak company, so instead of worrying about whether a large company like New Flyer would suffer a loss or whether a large person like Chairman Sue would make a mistake, it was better to study how to develop. Thinking of this, Cantona's eyes turned and he grabbed manager Riley's shoulder. He raised a brow at him and revealed a lecherous smile as he asked, Let's not talk about this. After work tonight, how about we go get a drink? I've heard that the figures of the little girls in the Principality of Constantine aren't bad. Do you want to experience it? Manager Riley swallowed a mouthful of saliva before shaking his head. No, there's a new batch of materials coming tonight. I have to arrange for someone to take it and personally make sure nothing happens. Cantona was a bit disappointed. That really is a pity. I was thinking that we should go get a drink and deepen our relationship. We might be working together for a long time in the future, so we can't not have a good relationship. Manager Riley laughed. Relax, there will be opportunities in the future. Now that things have been taken care of, it will be easier for us in the future, and we can play however we want. If we really take care of things here, do you believe that Head Wine won't ask for our help in the future? At that time, wouldn't you be able to experience any kind of girl with just a single word from Head Wine? Cantona thought about it before saying with a sigh, "All right, we'll talk about it in the future. But every time I see Head Wine, I think that with how fat he is, if he presses down on those little girls, wouldn't those little girls be crushed to death?" Manager Riley smiled. When he was about to say something, he suddenly saw a figure running in the distance and immediately stopped. Seeing Manager Riley's appearance, Cantona turned around and found that the person running over was a subordinate of the Cantona Chamber of Commerce. This subordinate charged in front of Cantona and didn't even have time to rest as he said while panting, "Fight! Fight! They're fighting!" Cantona knit his brows. "What's fighting?" Our people are. With those lazy things. They're fighting. They're fighting." Cantona was shocked. Chapter 368. What is going on here? Sui looked at Cantona, who had a scratch on his face, and Manager Riley, who had a bruised eye, and asked in a funny voice, "Could it be that the two of you felt that working here was too boring, so you fought each other out of boredom?" Cantona gave an awkward smile, and Manager Riley gave a bitter laugh before shaking his head. "Chairman Sue, don't tease us, I don't believe that you don't know what happened. As for this matter, we need your opinion on how to deal with it." Seeing the distressed expressions on their faces, Sue stopped teasing them. After thinking for a bit, he felt that this matter was indeed a bit troublesome. It was no wonder the two of them didn't immediately deal with it and waited a few days for him to deal with it. 4 days ago, on the 100,000 hectares of land that the new flyer had rented from Head Wine, there had been a serious group conflict between the over 1,000 farmers from the Lampari Kingdom and the 5,000 local farmers hired by the new flyer. According to the statistics, there were over 300 Banta City farmers and over 500 local farmers that had participated in the conflict. Although there weren't any serious deaths, there were close to 100 people that were heavily injured and over 400 that were lightly injured. Even Cantona, who was mainly in charge of the farm, and Manager Riley, who wasn't related to this, had been slightly injured. Because of this serious matter, all the work on the Shinfei farm had stopped. Cantona and his subordinates had been busy with work and hadn't slept well for several days. As for this matter itself, it isn't that hard to deal with. Sui considered it for a bit before saying to Cantona, "For our Banta City farmers, Cantona, you can go and mediate in private. As for the local farmers, I'll go find Head Wine. I believe that as long as they are punished, no one will dare cause trouble." Cantona was a bit hesitant, although no one will dare cause trouble, but, "Chairman Sue, I feel that our Banta City farmers are very right this time. These local farmers of the Principality of Constantine are clearly too lazy and aren't willing to do any work, but they still have the same wage as us. If it was me, I wouldn't be willing either. Not to mention that those fellows aren't satisfied, they actually took the initiative to accuse our Banta City farmers of taking too high a wage, which isn't fair. Humph, I don't know who is being unfair." Sui looked at Cantona and asked with a serious look, "Are these your real thoughts?" Cantona was stunned. He met Sui's gaze, and after hesitating a bit, he gave a strong nod. "Yes, these are my real thoughts. Chairman Sue, I've been in charge here for half a month, and I've personally seen how lazy those fellows of the Principality of Constantine are. According to what I can see, our Banta City farmers work 5 times a day, but each of them can still earn 5 gold coins. As for us farmers who came all the way from Banta City, we can only earn 100 gold coins a year. On average, we don't even earn 10 gold coins a month, which isn't even double what they earn. But in reality, they do earn a higher wage than the people of the Principality of Constantine, right?" Sui asked back. So from the perspective of the workers of the Principality of Constantine, their dissatisfaction is very reasonable. Pay. If they have the skills, why don't they work a bit more? According to what I said, they should follow the rules of our Banticity and pay according to how much work they do. Those who work more get more and those who work less get less. If they don't do anything, they shouldn't even think of getting a single copper coin. Sui revealed a faint smile. This idea isn't bad, but it's a pity that the situation of the Principality of Constantine is different, so it can't be implemented. Why can't it be implemented? Cantona asked in an unconvinced voice. Because I think that you're very clear that most of the wages of these workers end up in Headwine's pocket. Cantona was a bit surprised, but he instantly understood. He looked around and asked in a small voice, Chairman Su, according to what you're saying, this matter was instigated by Headwine? No wonder those fellows of the Principality of Constantine have always been honest, but they suddenly caused trouble 2 days before you came. In the end, they just wanted to raise conditions with you. Manager Riley on the side gave an angry cold snort. Humph! That damn fat pig. He kept praising Chairman Su in front of us these past few days, but I never thought that he would use such dirty methods behind our backs. He simply deserves death. As the person involved, Sui didn't care at all. He waved his hand with a smile. You don't need to have such a strong reaction. I'm only guessing about this matter. There's no evidence. We still need to cooperate with Headwine in the future, so we can't make our relationship too stiff. Then you mean that we should accept his threat this time? Cantona said in an unconvinced voice. Chairman Su, this damn fatty is insatiably greedy. If you agree to him once, I'm certain that he will keep doing this. Right, this kind of person's thoughts are definitely like this. As long as we give in to him once, he will become even worse. Chairman Su, I also feel that we shouldn't let him succeed this time, otherwise there will be no end to the troubles. Manager Riley also said. Relax, I know what to do. Sui shook his head with a faint smile. If it's just a request for money, I'm not worried at all. Then again, even if he has enough money, it's a problem if he has the life to spend it. Cantona and Manager Riley were surprised at the same time. They looked at each other and saw a trace of fear in each other's eyes. From Sui's words, they could feel a trace of coldness. All right, I'll leave the work of pacifying the farmers of Banta City to you, Cantona. Manager Riley, we are old friends, so if you can help with this matter, I'll thank you first. Chairman Su is too polite. Manager Riley waved his hand. With our relationship, this is just a small matter. But I feel that if you personally come out to pacify them, the effects will be better. To be honest, many of our Banta City's farmers are willing to leave Banta City and come all the way here to farm because of you and the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's signboard. Of course I will come out, but I won't be here for long and there are many other things I need to do, so the rest of the work will be left to you. Sui nodded before saying to Cantona again, remember, you have to calm the emotions of our Banta City farmers. Don't let them have any doubts about continuing to farm here. All right, I will do my best. Cantona nodded in response. After thinking about it, he asked, Chairman Su, do you think we should give them some compensation to make them feel assured? No. Sui shook his head and rejected this suggestion. To be honest, they are also in the wrong for this matter. If we deal with this properly, we might even need to punish them. There's still punishment. Cantona said in surprise. Then I'm worried that they won't do it. So this is just the surface way of dealing with it. On the surface, we need to severely punish this kind of behavior and avoid this kind of conflict from happening again. But in private, we need to tell them our new flyer's real attitude. It isn't convenient for me to come out on this matter, so I need you to communicate with them, Cantona. Cantona nodded to show he understood. Other than that, the method of farming needs to be changed. Since these farmers from the Principality of Constantine aren't easy to use, we don't need them to work with our Banta City farmers in the future. Anyway, with the help of those agricultural magic machines, just the people from our Banta City are enough to open up this farm. Sui said. Then what do we need these 5,000 people to do? There are many things they can do. For example, they can be in charge of the infrastructure around the farm, building roads, building houses, and other things. Manager Riley immediately revealed a bitter look. Chairman Sue, your new flyer isn't willing to keep these people, and our Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce isn't willing to use them. I know how lazy these fellows are, so if we send them here, wouldn't they be dragging us down? Their wages will be paid by our new flyer. What are you afraid of? Sui said. If you're worried that they'll drag us down, then don't have them do any work that requires skill. There are many simple things like building roads and docks that only require physical strength. You can just give them to them. Although they're lazy, there are still 5,000 people, so they can do a little bit. Manager Riley knit his brows and asked in a doubtful voice, Chairman Sue, why do I feel that you don't put these 5,000 people in your eyes at all? You don't treat them as real workers of your company at all. Sue gave a shrug. When these fellows change their lazy habits, I'll treat them as real workers of our company. Haven't you noticed that other than receiving a wage of 5 gold coins a month, they don't receive any of the benefits that our new flyer employees receive? Then isn't your wage of over 20,000 gold coins a month a waste? Manager Riley said in a stunned voice. There's no other way, this is the price that must be paid. Sue stood up. Manager Riley, I'll have to trouble you to help Cantona discuss how to deal with this. I'll go talk to Headwine first. A surprised look appeared on their faces. Cantona asked in a worried voice, Chairman Sue, it can't be that you want to lay your cards on the table with that damn fatty, right? It's not time yet. Sue revealed a faint smile. I'm just going to make a deal with him. Chapter 369. Seeing Sui again, Headwine's fat face almost bloomed with a smile. He didn't look like he was secretly directing the workers to cause trouble at all. Chairman Sue, are you planning on officially setting up the canned fruit processing factory and the rubber processing factory this time? Headwine asked with a smile. Sue gave a slight nod. I've brought a group of people and equipment this time, preparing to officially start work. I came to find Headwine this time to discuss something with you. Chairman Sue, please speak. As long as I can help, it definitely won't be a problem. Headwine patted his chest that was even fuller than the maid beside him as he spoke in a loud voice. It isn't anything troublesome, Sue said with a smile. Headwine, there's nothing much to say about the canned fruit factory, but because the rubber processing requires the participation of elves, there should be a lot of elven workers in the rubber processing factory. I hope you can be prepared to accept them in advance. Headwine was stunned. Elven workers? It can't be, right? When did elves come to work in our human factories? Cantona and the others haven't mentioned it to you before? Sue was a bit surprised. Our new flyer has been hiring elven workers for a long time. This isn't anything strange. They haven't mentioned it to me. Headwine shook his head as he looked at Sue with a strange expression. Chairman Sue, you really have good skills, actually being able to convince those arrogant elves to work in your factory. They are actually willing to accept the command and leadership of a human like you? It can't be considered accepting my command and leadership. It can only be considered a cooperation where everyone takes what they need, Sui said with a shake of his head. For example, the magic array technology needed for the rubber processing can only be used by the elves, so the rubber processing can't be separated from the elves. We need the elven technology, and the elves need to work for our company to obtain some resources. Currently, the cooperation between both sides is quite good. Oh, that sounds good. Headwine nodded in understanding. Then, Will you hire the elves of the Moon Shadow tribe of the Principality of Constantine for this rubber processing plant? It hasn't been confirmed yet. I came here this time to discuss with the Moon Shadow tribe's elves, Sui said. But in order not to delay the progress, this rubber processing plant will be set up first. At the same time, it was necessary to collect rubber in advance to ensure that there was enough rubber for processing after the official start of construction. Headwine, I hope you can help me with the rubber purchase. The smile on Headwine's face grew wider. Su Yi's words made it clear that he was in charge of all the rubber purchases. There was a huge profit in this. Chairman Su, may I ask, what price is New Flyer going to pay for this rubber? Headwine asked. It depends on the quality of the rubber, but in general, our tentative price is 20 gold coins per ton. What does Headwine think of this price? Do you have any objections? Sui asked. No, this price is very suitable. I don't have any objections. Headwine couldn't help but laugh loudly. His laughter was filled with unconcealed pride and ecstasy. Rubber trees could be seen everywhere in the Principality of Constantine. No one cared about the rubber that was produced, and it was almost a complete waste. Now that the Frestek Chamber of Commerce was willing to buy this thing that was no different from trash in Headwine's eyes for 20 gold coins a ton, this was simply a pie falling from the sky. How could he not be filled with wild joy? Chairman Su, don't worry. I will immediately organize people to collect rubber and make sure that there is enough stock when the rubber processing plant officially starts construction. After a pause, Headwine asked, But Chairman Su, how many tons of rubber can your rubber processing plant use every month? If you collect too much and can't use it, you don't have to worry about that. Just organize the collection and we will buy as much as you can. Sui said with certainty. Headwine was overjoyed again. According to his estimation, if he collected all the banana trees in his territory, he would be able to collect thousands of tons of rubber every month. If New Flyer used all of it, then Headwine would earn 20,000 gold coins. In a year's time, that would be another 200,000 gold coins. Adding in the rent for the 100,000 hectares of land, as well as the grain from the Frestek Chamber of Commerce, as well as the wages from the local workers, Headwine estimated that he earned a large profit of over 700,000 gold coins from the Frestek Chamber of Commerce each year. Before this, Headwine was the largest noble lord in the northern Principality of Constantine. He ruled a large territory in the northern part of the Principality of Constantine, but his annual income was only 300,000 gold coins. Now just by bringing in the Frestek Chamber of Commerce to invest, their annual income had actually increased by 2 times. So Headwine looked at Sui with a very warm gaze, even making Sui's hairs stand on end. Sui couldn't help shaking his shoulders, avoiding Headwine's gaze that was filled with love. He continued, Headwine, other than this, there is something else I need your help with. Please say it, please say it. No matter what it is, I will agree to it. Headwine said with a smile. A few days ago there was a serious conflict between the workers on the farm. It was mainly between our Lampari Kingdom workers and the local workers. I've already had Cantona restrain and educate the workers of our Lampuri Kingdom, so I hope that Headwine can also appease your local workers. Appease? Headwine shook his head. Do you need to be so polite to these lowly people? Chairman Su, if you don't like any of them, you can just teach them a lesson. Relax, they won't dare resist. That's not what I meant. Sui shook his head. Teaching them a lesson has no meaning to me. I just want them to understand that our new flyer is here to invest. If everyone works peacefully and cooperates, it will be beneficial for both sides. But if they keep causing trouble, I might lose confidence in this place and give up on investing here. I think that like this, not only will it be a loss for our new flyer, it will also be a great loss for Headwine's side. Sui stared into Headwine's eyes as he said this with a serious expression. An awkward look appeared on Headwine's face. Sue-E was warning the local workers on the surface, but it was also a warning to him. Just like Sue-E said, if Sue-E wasn't satisfied and lost confidence here, causing New Flyer to withdraw their investment, the one who would suffer the greatest loss would be Headwine's side. Accurately speaking, it would be Headwine himself. Right now he could expect to earn over 700,000 gold coins a year from the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. If the Frestec Chamber of Commerce left and he lost this large amount of income, Headwine couldn't accept it no matter what. So although he was dissatisfied with Sue-E daring to warn and threaten him, Headwine still nodded with a smile. Relax, Chairman Sue, I will definitely teach those lowly people a lesson. I promise that they won't cause trouble in the future. Alright, I believe in Headwine's abilities. Sue-Yi's serious expression relaxed and he said with a faint smile, Headwine, let me tell you another piece of good news. After knowing that our new flyer is investing in the Principality of Constantine, there are many companies in Banta City that want to invest here. So I suggest that Headwine should consider how to improve the environment here and strengthen their confidence in investing here. There are other companies that want to come? That's good. Headwine's eyes lit up as he quickly asked, then Chairman Sue, the thing you said. To improve the environment here, how should we do it? Actually, it's very simple. First, we need to improve the transportation environment. Sue-E seemed to have returned to when Satsuma Count was still the city lord, giving him suggestions on the overall plan of Banta City. Of course, compared to the bold and far-sighted Satsuma Count, Headwine was nothing at all. But he had an advantage, which was that as long as he made money, he could completely let go. No matter what Sue-E said, he would just nod in agreement. Headwine didn't oppose the idea of improving the environment in Headwine's territory at all. In the end, he even said that he would support whatever Sue-E wanted to do. But, when Sue-E mentioned that he would pay for the cost of improving the environment, Headwine's fat face jumped up and his expression became very awkward. This, Chairman Sue, according to your estimates, how much will it cost to complete this plan? Sue-E looked at him and raised 2 fingers. The initial estimate is 2 million gold coins. What? 2 million gold coins? Hearing this number, the head of the wine family jumped up high with a face full of disbelief. No, 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 this is impossible. Chairman Sue, you must be mistaken. It's just building a few roads and flattening the roads. How could it cost 2 million gold coins? From what I can see, it's already not bad to use 200,000 gold coins. Sue-E laughed, thinking that this greedy fatty really wasn't willing to pay a single copper coin. He had already expected this before coming, so he wasn't surprised. He kept smiling as he said, Headwine, it's fine if you're not willing to pay, our new flyer can take care of everything. Headwine was first happy before vigilantly looking at Sue-E. Chairman Sue, this is 2 million gold coins. Are you certain your new flyer will take care of everything? You need me to do something? We don't need you to do anything, we just need you to give our new flyer a special privilege. Sue-E narrowed his eyes and said with a faint smile. Chapter 370. You're spending 2 million gold coins just to get the right to station a team of no more than 500 guards? President Cruz looked at Sue-E in bewilderment. He frowned and asked, Sue-E, why do I find that ever since you came to the Principality of Constantine, you seem to have lost your mind? Why are you always doing business that is incurring losses? Incurring losses? Sue-E smiled faintly. First of all, you have to understand that even though the 2 million gold coins were paid by our new flyer to transform the environment here, the one who ultimately benefits the most from the environment is our new flyer. So in fact, seriously speaking, this can be regarded as our new flyer's own investment. The problem is, after all, this is the territory of the Principality of Constantine. Your new flyer can invest in the construction here, but you can't take away the things here. If one day you don't want to work here, wouldn't these things go to waste? President Cruz was puzzled. Who said I'm going to leave in the future? Sui retorted. You don't want to leave, do you want to stay here? This place. President Cruz suddenly paused. He looked at Sui with a face full of surprise, then looked around. He suddenly moved closer to Sui and asked in a slightly trembling voice, Hey, Sui, don't tell me you want to. Sui waved his hand. Don't ask me, I won't say. President Cruz closed his mouth and narrowed his eyes. He looked at Sui for a long time before he stood up again. He looked at Sui up and down as if he was meeting him for the first time. He gently shook his head and sighed. Sui, today I discovered that your ambition is much greater than I thought. But do you think that 500 people are enough? Aren't you underestimating the Principality of Constantine? When our 4 companies worked together on the Black Rice Wasteland last time, what do you think about the battle strength of our Frestec Chamber of Commerce's guards? Sui asked back a question that didn't seem relevant. President Cruz was slightly taken aback. After pondering for a moment, he frowned and said, Very strong, but to maintain this combat prowess, I'm afraid it will be very difficult, right? That's not what we're discussing now. Sui smiled and shook his head. To be honest, I don't even need to do anything. Something will happen inside the Principality of Constantine. The people here are so lazy that they want nothing more than to sleep themselves to death. What kind of change could there possibly be? Cruz snorted coldly. Sui couldn't help but laugh. He patted President Cruz's shoulder and said, What? Do you now understand the laziness of these people? President Cruz said with a snort, I really find it strange. How can the people here be this lazy? Of the 5,000 people you threw over, I took out 2,000 people to do the simplest work of leveling, but can you guess what happened in the end? Now that a week has passed, these 2,000 people. 2,000 people. They've only leveled less than 10 kilometers of land. With their efficiency, if they want to build roads in this large area, I might not even be able to do it after I die. So I said, don't count on the efficiency of the workers here. It's best to bring people from our Lampari kingdom. Then again, I'm not willing to waste my precious salary on these people. If there's money to be earned, why not let the people of our Lampari kingdom earn it? Sui said. I've already made my decision. When I go back in a few days, I'll be recruiting workers in Banta City. Oh no, not only Banta City, I'll be recruiting workers in the surrounding cities. Otherwise, I really won't be able to keep up. That would be best. Sui said with a nod. I'm certain that not only will your road construction work not decrease, it will increase even more. It will reach the point where you won't be able to keep up. That's certain. President Cruz said with a proud smile. After experiencing the benefits of roads, there are many people who have come to us to build roads. Not only have we built over 1,000 kilometers of roads in the Lampari Kingdom, we've even built over 300 kilometers in the Kingdom of Ruhr. Adding in the roads you have here, we'll be building over 1,500 kilometers of roads next year. It's still too little, Sui said with a sigh. According to my estimates, if we want to build roads in every part of the Lampari Kingdom, we'll need at least 50,000 kilometers. It's still far from enough. 50,000 kilometers. President Cruz said in a stunned voice. Isn't this too exaggerated? Could it be that you want to build roads everywhere in the Lampari Kingdom? Why not? Sui asked back. Could it be that you don't feel that this is something that should be done? This. President Cruz paused before he couldn't help nodding. I feel that it should be done. But there's a problem now. Sui, although it's very convenient to build roads, the increase in transport capacity that you mentioned didn't appear at all. The horse carriages are just a bit faster and more relaxed, but there isn't any significant increase. If you want to ask when the magic car will be made, why are you beating around the bush? Sui snappily said. President Cruz laughed. It's good that you know. Then tell me the truth, when will the magic car you mentioned be made? Sui looked to the northeast, that was where the falling rain valley was. Before coming here, the research facility told me that they had made a major breakthrough in the magic car research. If I can see the results of their research when I go back this time, perhaps I can give you an accurate answer. President Cruz gave a disappointed sigh. I've been waiting for your magic car for a year, but it still hasn't been made. Sui shook his head with a bitter smile. It's not just you, including me, who knows how many people have been waiting for the magic car to be officially suppressed. But this matter can't be rushed. There are too many things to design the magic car, and if we can't guarantee success, there will be many problems. President Cruz could only give a helpless shrug. All right, I've been waiting for a year, so I don't mind waiting a bit longer. Before this, you should just focus on building road. Sui said with a smile. When the magic car is released and the roads aren't finished yet, the magic car can't run at all. That would be a tragedy. President Cruz said with a cold snort. Be assured, I'm already adjusting the focus of our company's work. With our company's current efficiency, we can build 200 to 300 kilometers of roads in a month. When your magic car is finished, at least in the Lampari Kingdom, I can guarantee that it can run to any city on the road. That's great. Sui praised with a smile. He put down the matter of the magic car and began discussing the plans for the northern part of the Principality of Constantine with President Cruz. According to Sui's initial plan, of course they had to build roads in this territory first to solve the transportation problem. According to President Cruz's estimates, to meet Sui's basic requirements, they had to build at least 200 kilometers of roads. At the same time, although the road from the Falling Rain Valley to Samara Town had been finished, they still had to build a road from Samara Town, passing through the Valar tribe, passing through the Black Rice Wasteland, and finally connecting to the Principality of Constantine. This road would be close to 100 kilometers long, so the initial plan was to pave over 300 kilometers of road first. Because of the special climate of the Principality of Constantine, even though it was winter, they could still start construction. So President Cruz decided to take advantage of the winter when other places couldn't start construction to pull some construction teams from other places over and start construction here. They would try to pave the 200 kilometers of road in this winter. This plan naturally received the support of Sui. He took the initiative to cooperate with the Fersen Carriage Company to open a long-distance public transport line from Banta City to Wine City in the Principality of Constantine. They would be responsible for transporting the citizens of Banta City between the two cities. The only problem was that even if the road was finished, with the speed of the Fersen Carriage Company's horse carriages, it would take over 20 hours to complete a trip, so it would take 2 to 3 days. So the question returned to the question President Cruz asked Sui before. When will the magic car be developed? If the magic car could reach the speed of the long-distance buses on Earth, with a minimum speed of 60 kilometers per hour, it would only take 7 to 8 hours to travel the 400 kilometers from Banta City. It would be finished in a single day. But like he said in response to President Chris, the magic car had high requirements, so how could it be that easy to make it? After finishing his conversation with President Cruz, Sui left Wine City. He saw Agnes, Delil, and Stasia, who were already waiting in the forest by the road. This time he was going to see the Moon Shadow Tribe's elder Lysania Shadow Song. Agnes and he were the middleman, Delil was the representative of the Night Song tribe, and Stasia was the observer of the Moon Shadow tribe, responsible for providing Elder Lysania Shadow Song with advice. Although this was the new flyer opening a rubber processing factory here in name, Sui took the initiative to ask Elder Elucia to have Delil represent the Night Song tribe in proposing a cooperation with the Moon Shadow tribe. Because they were both elves, Elder Lysania Shadow Song's wariness would be reduced quite a bit, making it easier for the cooperation to succeed. Not to mention that Stasia was here. Chapter 371. Seeing Lysania again? Elder Shadow Song wasn't as difficult as the first time. Under Stasia's lead, Su Yi's group easily entered the Moon Shadow tribe. When she heard that the ones in charge of the cooperation were Delil and Agnes, the two elves from the Nightsong tribe, and that Su Yi, a human, didn't interfere, Lysania Elder Shadow Song immediately relaxed. After Elder Shadow Song was surprised, she immediately relaxed. Her eyes that looked at Su Yi changed from being vigilant to being friendly. Seeing Agnes and Delil following Lysania Elder Shadow Song, Elder Shadow Song was accompanied by Stasia into a small elven room for the discussion. Su Yi smiled and casually found a place to sit down in the Moon Shadow tribe. Su Yi was very assured about this discussion. After a period of tempering, Delil was already experienced in business discussions. Although she wasn't as crafty as many old human merchants, she was still able to deal with Lysania Elder Shadow Song. Elder Shadow Song was more than enough to handle Lysania Elder. Moreover, no matter how one looked at it, this negotiation would only bring benefits to the Moon Shadow tribe and no harm at all. Although the rubber processing factory that was about to be built belonged to the Xinfei Chamber of Commerce in name, it was the same as the Nightsong tribe's factory in the Falling Rain Valley. In reality, it would be completely controlled by the elves. New Flyer only had the rights in name. At the same time, New Flyer would continuously send orders to the rubber processing factory based on their own needs, allowing the rubber processing factory to always have work to do. As for the rubber processing technology, the Nightsong tribe and New Flyer would help the Moon Shadow tribe at the same time. They would work together on the research to ensure that the Moon Shadow tribe could completely grasp the rubber processing technology. In short, the Moon Shadow tribe didn't need to care about anything. They only needed to put in effort and they would be able to earn a large amount of profit. For such a good thing, Su Yi didn't believe in Lysania Elder Shadow Song. Shadow Song's Elder Guild remained indifferent. While waiting patiently, Su Yi was thinking about his plans for the rubber processing plant. When he came to the Principality of Constantine for the first time and saw rubber trees everywhere, Su Yi's first thought was that rubber really existed on this continent. Therefore, he didn't need to use resin to make tires, but could use rubber tires. Therefore, when he wanted to set up this rubber processing plant, he wanted to treat this rubber processing plant as a tire outer processing plant. But now that he had come to the Moon Shadow tribe and saw that there were obviously more elves here than in the Nightsong tribe, Su Yi realized that he had been too narrow-minded. Although most of the rubber on Earth was used to make tire covers, the use of natural rubber was far from just making tires. Moreover, from the plastic processing of the Nightsong tribe, Su Yi discovered a fact that he had always carelessly overlooked. After all, this place wasn't Earth. There were many things that Earth didn't have. The elven magic was even more varied than the magic of humans. Since the Nightsong tribe could conduct research on plastic processing and develop different kinds of plastics with different magic and formulas, then the Moon Shadow tribe would definitely be able to make a big breakthrough in rubber processing with their much larger scale than the Nightsong tribe. Therefore, the first step was to ask the rubber processing plant controlled by the Moon Shadow tribe to make tire covers according to the requirements of the New Flyer. At the same time, Su Yi proposed to let the Moon Shadow tribe establish a research lab to research rubber processing technology. The constant pursuit of technology was Su Yi's creed at all times. He hoped to impart this creed to the elves that he had gradually pulled into the ranks of the magic industry. After patiently waiting outside for a while, although the elves of the Moon Shadow tribe were very curious about this human that had appeared in their tribe, there wasn't a single elf that took the initiative to talk to him. Su Yi was happy with the peace and quiet. He took advantage of this rare moment to think about all kinds of problems. Time quickly passed by. After around an hour, Stasia came out of the small room and invited Su Yi in. After hinting for Sue to sit down next to Agnes, Elder Lysania immediately asked Sue, "Chairman Sue, is your new flyer certain that you won't interfere with this rubber processing plant?" Hearing this question, Sue immediately confirmed that Elder Lysania had already agreed to Agnes and Delil's suggestion, agreeing to establish this rubber processing plant. Yes. Sue immediately nodded with a faint smile. Elder Lysania, the reason why our company retains the rights to this rubber processing plant in name is actually to avoid some trouble. After all, it is rare for elves to establish a company in our human society. If you want to establish it by yourself, you might encounter some difficulties, but if it is under our new flyer's name, it will save you some trouble. I understand. Elder Lysania nodded, but I have a question. Since you said that your new flyer retains the rights in name, it will save us a lot of trouble, but if your new flyer uses this right to do something to our rubber processing plant, doesn't that mean we won't be able to resist at all? Without waiting for Sue to reply, Delil already replied, Elder Lysania, you don't need to worry. Chairman Sue is a human who keeps his promises. Our Nightsong tribe has already cooperated with him many times and Chairman Sue has never gone back on his words, so there has never been a problem with our cooperation. That's right, the chairman is a good person, he wouldn't do this kind of thing. Agnes on the side also said. Elder Lysania looked at Agnes and Delil with a bit of surprise before looking at Sue. She gave a slight nod and praised, Chairman Sue, as a human, you can obtain the trust of the elves of the Nightsong tribe. This really is rare. Sue revealed a faint smile. I'm just keeping my promise and thinking from the perspective of the elves of the Nightsong tribe. This is already very difficult. Elder Lysania thought for a bit before saying with a nod, since you can obtain the trust and recommendation of Elder Elucia, then I can also choose to trust you. But Chairman Sue, this kind of trust is only for you and not for other humans. Do you understand what I mean? I understand. I will personally participate in any cooperation with the rubber processing plant in the future. Sue said with a smile. But Elder Lysania, I hope that when you cooperate with our new flyer in the future, you can choose to trust a few humans through contact with us. After all, there are many times when I can't split myself up. Then again, our cooperation will likely last for a long time. Just like Elder Elucia and the two dwarven chiefs are worried about, I will grow old one day or even die. If you can only trust me, then there will be a very serious problem. I will consider your suggestion. But Elder Lysania turned to Agnes and asked, Elder Elucia also mentioned this problem in the letter she gave me last time, but I'm very curious. Since she is worried about this problem, why doesn't she think of a way to quickly increase Chairman Sue's magic power so that he can quickly become a great magician or even a great magus, extending his lifespan? Agnes and Delil looked at each other before shaking their heads in confusion. This can't be blamed on Elder Elucia. Sue continued, increasing a magician's magic level is not a simple matter. I can only rely on my own hard work. Even if Elder Elucia wants to help me solve this problem, she can't do anything. No, there is actually a way. Is there a way? Agnes asked in a confused voice. Delil's expression changed. After thinking for a bit, she asked Elder Lysania in an uncertain voice, Honorable Elder, you wouldn't be talking about the legendary moon god's blessing, right? Elder Lysania softly shook her head. The moon god's blessing is something that even us elves find hard to obtain, not to mention a human like him. Then is there a way to quickly increase one's magic power? Elder Lysania didn't immediately reply, rather she turned to Sue and said, Chairman Sue, us elves don't like owing other people things. Although I'm willing to cooperate with your new flyer and open this rubber processing factory to try and improve the environment of our tribe, because our tribe can't take out gold coins, the initial costs of opening the factory will be paid by your new flyer. Sue waved his hand and said with a smile, This isn't much. Elder Lysania, You can just treat this as an investment. I have my eyes on the prospects of the rubber processing factory, so I want to invest in your Moon Shadow tribe. No one owes anyone anything. If you insist on paying it back, then it's very simple. When the rubber processing factory generates profits, you can slowly pay it back. This is a very normal matter for us humans. No, this is not a method our elves are willing to accept. At least our Moon Shadow tribe isn't willing. Elder Lysania shook her head. After thinking for a bit, she suddenly stood up. Chairman Sue, because you are the chairman of the New Flyer, I will use our elven method to compensate you. I believe that the compensation I'm giving you this time should be enough to offset the gold coins your company has spent on this investment. Sui also stood up in doubt. Looking at the confused Agnes and Delil, he could infer from Elder Lysania's words that the compensation she was talking about should be using a method to quickly increase his magic power. But Sui had already been in signs for over 5 years and had been in contact with magic for over 5 years, but this was the first time he had heard that there was a method in this world that could quickly increase one's magic power. Could it be? The elves were hiding some secrets that humans didn't know about. Chapter 372. The Achievements of the Elves in Magic? If it was before the racial war, then they would definitely be much stronger than us humans. But after the racial war, more than 3,000 years have passed. The current level of magic of the elves may not be much higher than us humans. I don't think so. The lifespan of the elves is much longer than us humans, and their inheritance is more complete. In addition, the elves are not like us, who have all kinds of miscellaneous matters to deal with. They can completely focus on studying magic, so their level of magic will only get higher and higher. I'm afraid that's not right. The creativity of the elves is not as good as us humans. We humans can innovate and improve magic in these 3,000 years, but the elves can be said to be very few. This was very obvious before the racial war. In my opinion, the current level of magic of us humans has already far surpassed that of the elves. Creativity? You fellows are always proud of the creativity of humans, but can any of you tell me, although magic machines are very novel, they are actually not complicated things? Why did they wait until Sui, a mere level 4 magician, appeared before they were researched? Why didn't any of us great magicians research it? As soon as President Aaron said this, everyone present fell silent. This was a routine high-level meeting of the Lampari Kingdom's Sorcerers Guild. The only 5 great magicians of the Lampari Kingdom were participating in the meeting. The original topic of the meeting was to make a summary report on this year's Sorcerers Guild certification exam and let the other 4 great magicians, except for President Aaron, give their opinions. However, when discussing the specifics of this year's exam, the great magicians discovered a strange phenomenon. That was, the number of low-level magicians participating in this year's exam had clearly increased. It had even doubled compared to last year, and compared to the year before, it had increased by nearly 3 times. This was a very strange phenomenon because in the circle of magicians, low-level magicians naturally made up the majority. But in fact, among these low-level magicians, most of them were already very old, but still hadn't made much of a breakthrough in the level of magic, and were considered to have no future. For these magicians, they knew that they didn't have enough talent in magic, and it would be difficult for them to improve in their lifetime. Therefore, most magicians had given up on the idea of improving their level. Even if they wanted to, it was difficult to improve because of their limited talent in magic. Therefore, they wouldn't participate in the Sorcerers Guild's certification test. Generally speaking, those who came to take the low-level magician certification test were mostly young and talented magicians. However, it was different this year. The number of magicians who signed up for this year's certification test had suddenly increased, and many of them were old magicians who were thought to have no future. It had to be known that the certification test wasn't free. Just signing up would cost a total of 5 gold coins. Not to mention, to participate in the certification test, one had to come to Anvil City. Because of this, the cost of travel, lodging, and other expenses were also not cheap. Therefore, unless one felt that their magic strength had greatly improved and had the confidence to pass a higher-level certification test, no magician would waste time, energy, and money to participate in the certification test. This year, there were a large number of magicians who participated in the certification test. Many of them clearly didn't have any obvious improvement in their magic strength, but they still came to participate. There were even a few magicians who risked being expelled from the Sorcerers' Guild to cheat and attempt to pass a higher-level certification test. This was really strange, so when they were summarizing the report, the great magicians began to discuss this phenomenon. The reason why these low-level magicians did this was because there were benefits to be gained. Otherwise, no one would waste time, energy, and money for no reason, and even take a huge risk. But where were these benefits? After discussing for a while, great magician Eisenkel raised a possibility. It was related to the magic machine companies that were being built all over the Lampari Kingdom. Under the lead of the new flyer, almost everyone in the Lampari Kingdom saw the large benefits and potential of the magic machines. Therefore, especially this year, all kinds of magic machine companies had sprung up in the Lampari Kingdom. Since they were producing magic machines, they naturally needed a large number of magicians to be responsible for setting up the magic arrays. As for setting up a magic array, as long as it wasn't a very high-level or powerful magic array, normal low-level magicians would be able to do it. This was because setting up a magic array didn't require a lot of magic. Because of this, the demand for low-level magicians in the Lampari Kingdom suddenly increased. Before this, the low-level magicians in the Lampari Kingdom didn't have a better life than normal people. Other than working as guards for a company, they didn't have any other good options. Now that there was a simple and easy job like drawing magic arrays, it was naturally welcomed by all the low-level magicians. Of course, the choice went both ways. The magicians could choose which company to work for, and the company would choose which magician to hire. Even if it was the simplest job of drawing magic arrays, a high-level magician would be much better than a low-level magician. Not to mention, there were many ambitious companies that wanted to develop their own magic machines like the new flyer and earn a large amount of money. Of course they needed high-level magicians, and for a company, how could they determine the strength of a magician? The best proof was naturally the Sorcerers' Guild's certification exam. So last year's Sorcerers' Guild certification exam had increased the number of people, and this year was even more explosive. The number of magicians participating in the Sorcerers' Guild's certification exam almost took up 2/3 of the magicians registered with the Sorcerers' Guild. There were even many magicians that had never participated in the Sorcerers' Guild certification exam before and weren't even registered with the Sorcerers' Guild. Of course they will be active. There are already prices in Anvil City. Ignoring primary grade magicians, second-grade magicians have a minimum monthly wage of 10 gold coins, third-grade magicians have a minimum monthly wage of 15 gold coins, and fourth-grade magicians have a minimum monthly wage of 25 gold coins. As for fifth-grade magicians and above, the price can be discussed in person. When they heard Great Magician Eisenkel say this, including Great Magician Camilla, the other 4 great magicians were all stunned. Towards this phenomenon, the more conservative Great Magician Tolucci couldn't help criticizing it. In his opinion, the job of a magician was to research magic. These low-level magicians were not focusing on their research, but instead became so active because of a meager salary of a dozen or so gold coins a month. This was really a loss of the dignity of a magician. Great Magician Eisenkel gave a cold laugh at this. Can dignity feed you? These low-level magicians don't have the financial support of the kingdom like us, so it's impossible for them to earn large amounts of money with their fame. Don't forget, they are also people and need to make a living. Not to mention that studying magic requires large amounts of gold coins. If you don't let them think of ways to earn money, are you going to let them wait for death? Faced with Great Magician Eisenkel's rebuttal, Great Magician Tolucci had nothing to say. After that, with Great Magician Camilla's testimony, the other three Great Magicians understood that the reason for this strange phenomenon was indeed because of the demand from the various magic machine companies in the Lampari Kingdom. Because of this, the five Great Magicians couldn't help changing the topic to the new flyer and then to Sui. After talking about Sui, Great Magician Eisenkel asked Great Magician Camilla about Suyi's current whereabouts. Because Sui didn't participate in this year's exam, the other three Great Magicians were very concerned about what Sui was doing. When they learned from Great Magician Camilla that Sui had gone to the Principality of Constantine for an investment investigation, the Great Magicians couldn't help feeling that it was a pity. This was because, in their opinion, Suyi's talent for magic was very high. If he was willing to focus on studying magic, perhaps the Lampari Kingdom would have a sixth Great Magician soon. When they heard Great Magician Camilla mention that Sui was going to the Principality of Constantine's Elven Moon Shadow Tribe to discuss cooperation, the Great Magicians changed the topic to Elven magic. This created a debate about whether Elven magic or human magic was stronger. Regarding this question, Great Magician Camilla and President Aaron remained neutral, feeling that both sides were at the same level. Great Magician Tolucci and Great Magician Torres were more conservative, thinking that the elven magic that had been passed down for thousands of years had a higher level. As for Great Magician Eisenkel, he was a radical and a complete believer in humanity. He was confident that the human magic level had already surpassed the elven magic level. But when President Aaron asked why the magic machines weren't developed by great magicians like them and were developed by Sui, the other four great magicians were speechless. In particular, Great Magician Eisenkel couldn't help feeling a trace of shame in his heart. Compared to the other four great magicians who focused on magic, Great Magician Eisenkel focused on combining magic with business applications. But after focusing on magic for all these years, he had never considered magic machines before. Rather, it was Sui who was a low-grade magician whose magic level wasn't worth mentioning to him before that was the first to develop it. It can only be said that our thinking has already become rigid. After a bit of silence, Great Magician Eisenkel revealed a bitter smile. Moreover, it has to be said that this kid Sui is truly a genius. There are many areas where even I am inferior to him. Great Magician Camilla's lips curled, and he couldn't help revealing a smile. Sui was now Steele's husband, and he had watched him grow up bit by bit. Praising Sui made him happier than praising himself. Speaking of this, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. President Aaron thought for a bit before saying with a frown, although with the new flyer, there are many magic machine companies that have appeared, allowing many low-grade magicians to find good jobs, solving a problem that has been troubling our Sorcerers Guild for a long time. But like this, I'm afraid that many low-grade magicians will choose to work for these companies and study magic arrays instead of magic. This isn't necessarily a good thing. Studying magic arrays can also raise the level of magic. Great Magician Camilla calmly said, I haven't told you yet, but ever since I closed the Magic Tower and entered the New Flyers Academy of Magic to study magic arrays, my magic level has quickly increased. I should be a 4th grade Great Magician now. Chapter 373. Great Magician Camilla's voice was very calm when he said this, but in the ears of the other 4 great magicians, it was like a bolt of lightning had struck them. What? Camilla, you actually leveled up? God above. Camilla, after all these years, you actually leveled up. This is too incredible. You actually leveled up. Compared to the other 3 great magicians, President Aaron's reaction was different. Other than being shocked, he was also filled with joy. He jumped out of his seat and grabbed Great Magician Camilla's hand. He excitedly shook his head and said with a pleasantly surprised look, "This is great. This is great. Our Lampari Kingdom has become a bit stronger." As the chairman of the Lampari Kingdom's Sorcerers Guild, although President Aaron was also a great magician, he placed more importance on increasing the level of magicians in the kingdom. For the level of magicians in the kingdom, the most important thing was the strength of the great magicians. Although Great Magician Camilla had only leveled up, it was several times harder for a great magician to level up compared to a low-level magician leveling up. Not to mention that Great Magician Camilla hadn't leveled up in close to 10 years. President Aaron thought that his magic power had reached its peak and it would be hard for him to level up again, but he never thought that he would suddenly level up. Naturally, he was filled with joy. After everyone congratulated him for a while, Great Magician Eisenkel asked, "Camilla, based on what you said just now, your magic level increased quickly after you focused on studying magic arrays, so you directly leveled up?" The other three great magicians all looked at Great Magician Camilla. This was a question they were very concerned about. Great Magician Camilla thought for a bit before nodding with a faint smile. "It's basically like this. Although I can't say that my improvement in magic standards is entirely due to my focus on magic arrays, I have indeed obtained many new inspirations from my research on magic arrays. I have even gained a brand new understanding of magic, which is why my magic standards have improved so quickly." The other four great magicians looked at each other and nodded at the same time. At the level of great magicians like them, they naturally knew that studying magic wasn't something that could be done by holing up in a research lab every day. Instead, it could only be done by continuously deepening their understanding of magic. But after becoming a great mage, one would have a very deep understanding of magic. Wanting to improve in this aspect was easier said than done. Now that Great Magician Camilla said that he had focused on studying magic arrays that magicians didn't care about, he had gained inspiration and deepened his understanding of magic, raising his level of magic. This was a very good hint for them. "Camilla, since you're at the Academy of Magic in New Flyer, you should be researching magic arrays for magic machines, right?" Great Magician Taluchi asked. "Right, I'm participating in most of the magic array research on New Flyer's magic machines," Great Magician Camilla said with a nod. "But the magic arrays used in these magic machines are all very low-level magic arrays. How can you gain any inspiration from studying such low-level magic arrays?" Not only Great Magician Taluchi, the other three great magicians were also a bit curious. "You shouldn't look down on the magic arrays on the magic machines." Great Magician Camilla shook his head with a smile. Great Magician Camilla shook his head with a smile. Although the level of the magic array is indeed very low, in order to satisfy the needs of the magic machines, the requirements for the magic arrays are different from the magic arrays we normally study. In terms of complexity, they aren't worse than high-level magic arrays, and might even be a bit more complicated. "It's that exaggerated?" Great Magician Torres on the side was in a bit of disbelief. "My family also bought several magic machines from New Flyer, so I dismantled one when I had nothing to do." "Oh right, I called that magic water heater to study. The flame array used in it isn't that strange." Great Magician Camilla looked at Great Magician Torres and laughed. "That's because you haven't studied it deeply enough. Let me ask you, if we want to keep the heat of the flame array stable, what do you think we should do? Isn't that simple? We just need to keep the magic supply stable, and the magic array itself won't have any problems with fluctuations." Great Magician Torres curled his lips in disdain. "Your thoughts are too simple." Great Magician Camilla shook his head. Great Magician Camilla shook his head. "If the magic array is in its complete state, it won't have any fluctuations, but the magic array is in the base, so it will be affected by changes in the base material. Even if there is a slight change in the base itself, it will be affected. So to keep the magic array stable, you have to make sure that the magic array itself can't be easily damaged." Just based on this, you need to do a lot of research. This isn't that hard, right? Great Magician Torres slightly knit his brows. Although he said this, the expression on his face was no longer as disdainful as before. No, this is very hard. The one who spoke this time was Great Magician Eisenkel. He shook his head and said with a soft sigh, Torres, don't think that this request is simple. My subordinates and I have already studied this problem for half a year, but we still haven't found a perfect solution. Camilla, how did your new flyer solve it? Great Magician Camilla laughed and shook his head as he said, Eisenkel, you should know that this is a trade secret, I can't casually tell you. Great Magician Eisenkel said with a bitter smile, this must be what that brat Sue told you. AI, where did that Great Magician Camilla, who always said that magic research should be shared with all magicians to increase the level of magic? Great Magician Camilla naturally knew that he was joking, so he said with a laugh, the past is the past, I've already thought it through. That kid Sue was right, if all magicians had to share all the new things they carefully researched for free, it would hinder the increase of the level of magic. Haven't you noticed that since the Union's patent law was passed, there have been many new magic research results appearing all over the continent? President Aaron immediately said with a nod, that's right. In the internal journal last time, it said that in just this month, there were over 3,000 magicians who applied for patent protection from the Union and there were over 5,000 magic research results. The Union has done a rough count of these magic research results, and although most of them aren't very useful, there are over 1,000 research results that are very helpful in increasing the level of magic. Great Magician Tolucci and Great Magician Torres looked at each other before Great Magician Tolucci said with an emotional voice, I was against Sue Yi's proposal before, but I never thought that once the patent law was passed, the effects would be this good. Over 1,000 new research results. This is equal to all the research results released by magicians in the last 50 years. Great Magician Torres said with a bitter laugh, us old fellows can't even compare to that kid Sue when it comes to understanding human nature. He's right, knowing that they have to pay for the results of their research. The magicians of the continent have become much more active. They're no longer like before where they hide their discoveries like treasures and refuse to take them out. That's right. Although we need to spend money to know the results of the patent, if we can solve problems that we couldn't solve before with money, this isn't much at all. Great Magician Eisenkel said with a nod. So when that brat Sue first proposed this patent law, I was very supportive of it. Looking at it now, the effects are very good. That's right, I really don't know how that brat's head works. Why does he have so many strange but useful ideas? Hearing the other four great magicians, including President Aaron praise Sue Great Magician Camilla's old face bloomed with a smile. After a while, President Aaron gave a soft cough and stopped everyone from praising and discussing, bringing the topic back to the main topic of the meeting. Because there were more magicians participating in the certification exam compared to before, the Sorcerers Guild had a lot more work to do this year. Adding in the fact that the continent's Sorcerers Guild required a great magician to take charge of the certification exam, not a single one of the 5 great magicians were able to take a break during the certification exam of the Lampari Kingdom's Sorcerers Guild. Of course this couldn't go on, so President Aaron held this meeting. The final topic of discussion was how to distribute the work to increase efficiency. After some discussion, the 5 great mages reached a temporary consensus. If there were still so many mages participating in the certification exam in the future, then they would send 2 great mages other than President Aaron to be in charge of the exam. The next time, it would be the other 2. President Aaron was the chairman of the Lampari Kingdom's Sorcerers Guild, so naturally he had a duty to take charge. After everything was discussed, the other 3 great magicians left, but Great Magician Camilla was left behind by President Aaron. However, when everyone left and there was only President Aaron and Great Magician Camilla left in the room, President Aaron opened his mouth, and Great Magician Camilla was stunned. Chapter 374. Camilla, do you think? President Aaron hesitated a bit before continuing. Does our Sorcerers Guild have a place to cooperate with the new flyer? Great Magician Camilla looked at President Aaron in surprise. The guild is cooperating with our new flyer? How? President Aaron slightly knit his brows. From Great Magician Camilla saying, our new flyer, it could be seen that for the current Great Magician Camilla, compared to the Sorcerers Guild, the new flyer was a place he approved of more. This was not a situation that President Aaron was happy to see. In his opinion, all the magicians in the Lampari Kingdom should put the Sorcerers Guild first. However, he wasn't qualified to criticize Great Magician Camilla like this. Not to mention that the new flyer's chairman Sue-E was Great Magician Camilla's granddaughter-in-law. Just Great Magician Camilla was the chief researcher of the New Flyer Academy of Magic. It said that he received at least 10,000 gold coins from the New Flyer each year. Just based on this, the Lampari Kingdom and the Sorcerers Guild couldn't compare to him. Thinking of this, President Aaron secretly gave a sigh in his heart. He then said with a smile, "Look, doesn't your new flyer need large amounts of magicians to help you with your research on magic arrays? You just said that after focusing on magic arrays, even a great magician like you has gained a lot of inspiration in terms of magic. You've gained a new understanding and increased your magic level. Then I think that if our Sorcerers Guild cooperates with your new flyer, letting the magicians under the guild participate in the research on magic arrays, wouldn't they be able to quickly increase their magic power?" Great Magician Camilla thought for a bit before giving a slight nod. "I feel that's not bad. Right now, the researchers in the Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce have been improving quite quickly. Most of the researchers who came for the certification exam this time are much stronger than last year. So, do you think that the Sorcerers Guild and the New Flyer can work together and come up with a plan for us to be the middleman and introduce the kingdom's mages to participate in the research of magic machines?" President Aaron immediately asked. "I believe that Sue-E would be very happy to have so many magicians serving New Flyer. This brat has always complained that there are too few magicians in the Academy of Magic, which has seriously affected the research progress." Great Magician Camilla nodded. "However, I can't promise you this. After all, he is the guild leader. I have to go back and discuss this with him." "Of course." Seeing Great Magician Camilla agree, President Aaron was filled with joy. Sue-Yi's ideas have always been very advanced, and he has a lot of ideas. I believe that he will be able to think of a suitable way to complete this cooperation with the Union. "Camilla, I'll leave this matter to you." Great Magician Camilla gave a slight nod and didn't say anything else. In his opinion, the reason why President Aaron suddenly proposed this cooperation was to obtain some benefits for the magicians under the Sorcerers Guild. This was something he should do as the Sorcerers Guild's chairman. As one of the 5 great magicians of the kingdom, Camilla naturally had the responsibility to support this matter. As for whether Sue-E would agree or not, Great Magician Camilla didn't think there was a problem. The New Flyer lacked magicians, and the Sorcerers Guild had many magicians under them that were worried about their jobs. Both sides could be said to have hit it off, and there wouldn't be any obstacles. After chatting for a bit and confirming the general direction of this cooperation, President Aaron paused. He suddenly rubbed his hands and said to Great Magician Camilla in an embarrassed voice, "Other than this official matter, there is also a private matter that I need Camilla to help me with." Great Magician Camilla revealed a smile and asked in a somewhat surprised voice, "What private matter is there that requires a chairman like you to come find me for?" "It's related to that brat of mine." President Aaron's expression was a bit awkward. "That brat Enk has been telling me for a while now that he saw the magic machines in Anvilmar City selling very well and the people he knew were earning a lot of money because of it, so he was a bit moved. He wanted to learn this business, but he didn't have any connections. Look. Seeing President Aaron's expression, Great Magician Camilla immediately understood what he meant. He said with a smile, "If he has any ideas on cooperating with our new flyer, you can take it out and I'll pass it on to Sui. As for whether Sui will agree or not, I'm not certain. After all, Ku, you also know that he and Sui have some disagreements before. That is all in the past." President Aaron waved his hand. Ankh said that he and Sui have already reached an agreement. I believe that Sui is a magnanimous person, so he won't put this small matter in his heart. All right, since Camilla has agreed, then I'll tell you what this kid is thinking. He wants to cooperate with your Frestek Chamber of Commerce to open a factory outside Anvilmar City. That way he can produce the Frestek brand magic machines in Anvilmar City and then sell them in Anvilmar City. Wouldn't he be able to save on transportation costs? Great Magician Camilla looked at President Aaron and thought that this idea didn't come from Ankh Aaron, but rather President Aaron himself. If it was Ankh Aaron, how could this brat have the courage to directly say that he wanted to cooperate with New Flyer to open a factory? Not mentioning anything else, it would cost several 100,000 gold coins to open a factory. How could Ankh Aaron take it out? If it was before, Great Magician Camilla would have scolded President Aaron for not thinking about the Sorcerer's Guild and only thinking about his own benefits. However, after being influenced by Sui, Great Magician Camilla had already changed his mind. He began to seriously consider what benefits this cooperation would bring to New Flyer. It was different from the official cooperation with the Sorcerer's Guild. If he cooperated with President Aaron privately, New Flyer would definitely receive the support of President Aaron. This would be a large boost to the support of New Flyer in the Magician Circle. After seriously considering this problem, Great Magician Camilla nodded. All right, I will tell Sui. But I'll say the same thing, I can't guarantee whether he will agree or not. President Aaron's face filled with joy as he said, No problem, no problem. As long as you tell Sui, I think he will seriously consider it. After deciding on a business matter and a private matter, Great Magician Camilla saw that President Aaron had nothing else to say, so he stood up and said his goodbyes. Walking out of the Sorcerer's Guild's door, Great Magician Camilla looked at the bustling crowd on the street outside. He couldn't help giving a sigh as he shook his head with a bitter smile. What that brat Sui said to him before really was correct. Magicians were also people and needed to make a living. Because of magic research, they needed money more than normal people, so Great Magician Camilla's idea of focusing on magic research was not feasible. As expected, once they heard that there were benefits, from President Aaron to the normal low-level magicians in the Lampari Kingdom, everyone began to move. There were more and more magicians participating in the low-level magician certification exam because they wanted to work for magic machine companies and earn a decent wage. President Aaron proposed to cooperate with the New Flyer because he wanted to give the magicians under the guild a reward. In the end, the private matter that President Aaron proposed was to obtain benefits for himself. Everything proved that Suyi's point of view was correct. That's right, magicians needed money to support them, otherwise they wouldn't even be able to guarantee their basic lives, so how could they properly study magic? Actually, Great Magician Camilla was only complaining about Chief Aaron trying to obtain benefits for himself, but he was very supportive of obtaining benefits for the low-level magicians. He even made up his mind to convince Sui to cooperate with the Sorcerer's Guild. This was because before this, the Sorcerer's Guild had always been worried about the living conditions of the low-level magicians. Different from the great magicians who had the financial support of the kingdom and other sources, normal low-level magicians, especially low-level magicians, didn't have that much of an advantage compared to normal people. Because the magic level of low-level magicians wasn't particularly high, whether it was the military or the merchant guilds that needed guards, these low-level magicians didn't have a high demand for them. Therefore, even though low-level magicians made up the majority of the magicians, they were the ones in the most difficult situation. Normally speaking, because these low-level magicians didn't have the strength to join the army or companies, they could only join mercenary groups or adventurer teams that didn't have high requirements, risking their lives every day. Otherwise, they would be forced to give up the path of magic and return to the ranks of normal people. Because they couldn't solve the problem of low-level magicians, there were large amounts of low-level magicians that left the ranks of the continent each year. There were many young magicians that had decent talent in magic and had a bright future. The Sorcerers' Guild had always wanted to solve this problem, increasing the number of magicians and the overall level of magicians. However, the Sorcerers' Guild itself wasn't an organization that had much income, so the things they could do were limited. Although they had thought of using magic to make some things to make money, there were very few successful things. Even if one or two succeeded, they couldn't generate enough income. For example, the magic lamp that Sui had before was something that several great magicians of the Sorcerers' Guild had researched together. However, because the cost was too high, the price was too high and no one bought it after it was released, so it could only end miserably. So it could be said that with the appearance of the new magic machines developed by the Xinfei Chamber of Commerce, there was a very promising market for magic machines. It made these low-level magicians suddenly find that they finally had a place to use their skills, and they could earn quite a bit of income with their weak magic power. It wasn't exaggerated to say that with the appearance of the magic machines, it gave all the low-level magicians a hope of survival. It was very likely that it would change the environment of magicians in the Lampari Kingdom. If one thought even further, as the magic machines continued to spread, in the end, perhaps all the magicians on the continent would have a large change because of the magic machines. Thinking of this, great magician Camilla thought of the first time he saw the magic fan in Steele's hands. At that time, how could he have predicted that such an ugly, simple, and inconspicuous gadget would have such a far-reaching impact? I never thought that I still underestimated that kid Sui. Great magician Camilla revealed a bitter smile, but he also shook his head in a pleased manner. When he was about to enter the horse carriage outside the Sorcerers' Guild, he saw Alex from the corner of his eyes. Chapter 375. Since he was appointed by Sui as the new Flyers representative in Anvilmar City 2 years ago, being in charge of most of the new Flyers business in Anvilmar City, Alex's life had completely changed. Before this, although he had been the assistant manager of the new Flyers factory for a while, receiving a salary of around 20 gold coins a month, which had greatly improved his life, Banta City was a small place and the things he could experience were limited. Since he came to Anvilmar City, because he was mainly in charge of contacting Victor, Cell, and Urgot in the beginning, coordinating with the new Flyers cargo from Banta City, Alex quickly became familiar with Victor's group. Because Victor's group deliberately approached him, Alex was quickly led by the 3 of them who were locals of Anvilmar City. In a short period of time, he saw the bustling scene of Anvilmar City and learned many new things that he couldn't experience in Banta City before. For example, the luxurious banquet at the Amy restaurant, the surprise party at the Royal Villa, the wild scene at the Op Casino, and the delicate skin of the little girl in the small building beside the Op Casino. However, all of this cost money. Although Victor and the other 2 had paid for everything at the beginning, and Alex didn't even have to pay a single copper coin, as time passed, Alex naturally couldn't just let them pay for everything, and he had to treat them back. Like this, Alex's 25 gold coins monthly salary as the person in charge of the new Flyer was far from enough. So Alex had been a bit annoyed recently. This was because he had secretly made a rough estimate last month and found that he owed Victor's group a total of over 2,000 gold coins. With his monthly salary, even if he didn't eat or drink, it would take him 7 years to pay it all back. But to give up this luxurious life and return to the days of poverty, Alex couldn't accept it no matter what. Although as long as he honestly told this matter to his Uncle Heinz, Heinz would definitely help him pay this money back. After all, Heinz was the New Flyers vice chairman and had 20% of the New Flyers shares. Just based on the dividends, he earned several 100,000 gold coins each year, so a trivial 2,000 gold coins couldn't be placed in his eyes at all. But Alex didn't dare. Could it be that he could run to Heinz and tell him that because he spent all day in Unveil City, he owed 2,000 gold coins? Even if Heinz didn't break his legs, he would at least take him back from Unveil City and wouldn't let him out in the future. However, if he didn't ask Heinz for help, what other methods could Alex think of? When people were forced into a corner, they would be forced to do something. Alex had been worried about this problem for several days before he finally thought of a solution. It was a good thing that the Magicians Guild certification exam had just ended, so there were many researchers from the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's Magic Research Facility that had come to Unveil City. So during the certification exam, Alex used the reason that Sir Chairman had given him to help the researchers who came to Unveil City for the certification exam. He had received the praise of all the researchers and had been in contact with them many times. With his identity as Vice Chairman Heinz's nephew, the researchers didn't have any vigilance against him. Between toasts, Alex easily obtained some of the things he needed. And today it was time to use these things. When Great Magician Camilla saw Alex, he was walking into an alley from the main street in front of the Sorcerer's Guild. After thinking about it, he didn't chase after Alex to greet him, rather he got into his horse carriage and left the Sorcerer's Guild. Alex wandered around the alley for a bit, and after circling around a few times, he suddenly entered a small door on the side of the quiet alley. He passed through the garden in the back and entered a small room, where he saw a middle-aged man who seemed to have been waiting for a long time. "You brought the things?" This was clearly not the first time the middle-aged man had seen Alex. After seeing him come in, he didn't greet him and directly asked this question. Alex slightly bowed and nodded to the middle-aged man with a humble smile. He searched his chest and took out a thin notebook that he handed over. The middle-aged man took it and began to carefully flip through it page by page. From time to time, he would stop and think for a while. When he finished reading the notes, which were made up of less than 10 pieces of paper and were personally written by Alex, he frowned and thought for a while. Then, he asked Alex, "Is this all?" Alex laughed, There's still quite a bit, but—" Seeing the expression on Alex's face, the middle-aged man gave a cold snort. He took a book and after opening it, he took out a gold bill and placed it on the table. Alex immediately picked up the gold note with a face full of smiles. Seeing the number 2000 on the gold note, as well as the seal of the Chimera Chamber of Commerce, the smile on his face became even more radiant. He hurriedly took out a notebook that was obviously much thicker, and respectfully handed it to the middle-aged man with both hands. The middle-aged man didn't look over it carefully this time, and just casually flipped through it before putting away the 2 notebooks. Then he said to Alex, "All right, this transaction ends here. Don't let anyone else know about this. You should know what to do, right?" I understand. Alex nodded. "Of course, if you have similar things in the future, we can make another transaction. As for the price, it depends on the value of the things you give," the middle-aged man said again. No, just this time, there won't be a next time." Alex shook his head vigorously like a rattledrum. "Don't talk about a next time. If Uncle knows what I did this time, he will definitely break my legs. Even Chairman Sue won't forgive me, so there won't be a next time. Goodbye." After saying this, Alex seemed to be afraid that the middle-aged man would force him to stay. He hurriedly opened the door and quickly left the secluded small courtyard. The middle-aged man in the room looked at the open door and the direction Alex disappeared in with a disdainful sneer on his face. "Hey, how can a cat that has tasted fish control its own desires? Kid, you're too naive." The middle-aged man looked at the two notebooks Alex had just handed over. He casually took out the other notebook and copied everything down. Then, after thinking about it, he stood up and left the small room. He walked out of the courtyard and entered the Sorcerer's Guild not far away. He was clearly a frequent visitor of the Sorcerer's Guild. After entering the guild, no one stopped him and he smoothly walked into the chairman's office. After finishing his conversation with Great Magician Camilla, President Aaron, who was taking care of some matters, looked up. When he saw the middle-aged man walk in, his expression changed and his brows slightly jumped up. "You got it?" The middle-aged man gave an unsound before closing the door and looking at President Aaron. President Aaron understood and said with a smile, "Relax, this office has always been protected by the sound barrier magic I personally set up. No one else can hear what's happening inside." The middle-aged man relaxed a bit and casually sat down in front of President Aaron. He took out the notebook he had just copied and handed it over. President Aaron took the notebook and looked over it with an even more serious expression than when the middle-aged man checked Alex's notebook. But compared to the middle-aged man, President Aaron's inspection speed was clearly much faster. He used less than 10 minutes to finish inspecting everything, and then he put the notebook away without any hesitation. He nodded at the middle-aged man with a smile. "Not bad, it is indeed the things I need. But I'm very curious, where did you get these things?" The middle-aged man revealed a faint smile. "President Aaron, this isn't something you should be concerned about, right?" President Aaron slightly knit his brows, but he didn't refute the middle-aged man's words. After thinking about it, he said, "That's fine, I like people who follow the rules. This is good for everyone." After saying this, President Aaron took out 3,000 gold bills from the drawer and placed them on the table. "At the same time," he said, "if you have similar things in the future, I'll take them all." The middle-aged man didn't waste words and just gave a nod. He put the 3 gold bills away and gave President Aaron a bow before turning to leave the office. When the door to the office closed, President Aaron took out the notebook from his chest. After looking at it, he put it away and also left the office. He walked out of the Sorcerer's Guild and stepped into the private horse carriage waiting outside, quickly heading south of Anvilmar City. The carriage drove out of Anvilmar City and headed south for about 10 kilometers before turning west for another 2 kilometers before stopping. This was a wasteland, but now it had become a construction site. There were many workers building several large rooms on this wasteland. Just based on the outside, it was almost the same as the New Flyers workshop in the Falling Rain Valley. Walking into the workshop that was almost finished, he found that it was empty. There weren't any magic cars and there were only some workers finishing the final decorations. Seeing President Aaron come in, a young man who was around 30 years old, who was also dressed as a magician, came forward. "Sir President, why did you personally come?" the young magician asked in a respectful voice. President Aaron ignored him and looked around, but he didn't find Ankh Aaron, who was supposed to be in charge here. He couldn't help deeply knitting his brows and giving a strong snort. The young magician immediately understood President Aaron's meaning and quickly said with a smile, "Ankh went to the city to investigate, he wasn't slacking off. All right, you don't need to hide it for him. I know what kind of person that kid is better than you." President Aaron gave another cold snort, but he wasn't willing to say anything else. He took out the notebook from his chest and gave it to the young magician. "Take this thing and properly study it with them. If you can understand it all, we can save quite a bit of effort." The young magician took the notebook and looked it over before his expression became more and more surprised. "Sir President, how did these things appear in your hands? Isn't this New Flyer's most important secret?" President Aaron looked at him and calmly said, "Don't ask things you shouldn't ask." The young magician was frightened and quickly nodded. "Yes, I understand." After thinking for a bit, he asked hesitantly, "But Sir President, aren't you planning to cooperate with New Flyer?" There doesn't seem to be a need for us to study these things, right? Naive. Do you think that Guy Sue will give the real technology to others? Besides, don't tell me that we will always be led by the nose by him? Properly study these things for me. It would be best if we can come up with something that belongs to us. If we want to make money, we can't just rely on others, do you understand? President Aaron said sternly. The young magician nodded vigorously. Sir President, you are right. We will definitely properly study it and definitely won't waste these things that are hard to come by. Looking at the apprehensive young magician, President Aaron sighed and looked towards the south. He thought to himself that even when Sue met him for the first time, he was neither servile nor overbearing, as if he was always so confident. Perhaps it was because of this that he was able to develop so many new magic machines? His subordinates, who were known as geniuses, couldn't compare to Sue in this aspect. Thinking of this, President Aaron suddenly felt a trace of envy towards great mage Camilla for the first time. If he had a daughter as young and beautiful as steel, and not a brat like Ankh, would he be able to pull Sue to his side? If it was like this, how much effort would he save? Chapter 376. SSS, Achoo. A gust of cold wind blew in through the window of the carriage, catching Sue off guard and causing him to involuntarily shiver before violently sneezing. President Cruz, who was sitting opposite him, had his chest covered in saliva from Sue's sneeze, and his face immediately turned bitter. I say, Sue, aren't you an advanced mage? How can you not even stand this little bit of cold wind? Sue smiled embarrassedly and threw a handkerchief to President Cruz. He shrugged his stiff body from sitting in the carriage for a long time and helplessly said, I can't help it. I'm not a great mage, and I can't interact with the surrounding magical elements at any time like a great mage. Of course, I'm still afraid of the cold like an ordinary person. President Cruz glanced at Sue's thin clothes and couldn't help but shake his head. If you're afraid of the cold, why don't you wear more clothes? Are you looking for trouble? Sue shrugged and replied, I can't help it. I just came back from the Principality of Constantine and forgot that it's much colder here than in the Principality of Constantine. Also, I want to do an experiment. What experiment? Sue shook his head and didn't answer. There was no way he could tell this experiment to others, especially President Cruz, who didn't know anything about magic. The experiment that he was talking about was actually to let him experience the interaction with the surrounding magical elements that he mentioned just now. According to the elves, this should be called the complete perception of magical element. But after listening to Elder Lysania Shadowsong's explanation of this phenomenon, Sue defined it as the interaction of the same frequency. This was because the so-called complete perception, from Sue's understanding, meant that a mage could rely on their own magic power to completely sense all the magical elements that existed in the surroundings, and then try to make the vibration of their magic power to maintain the same frequency as the surrounding magical elements. In this way, it would be easier to use magic to influence all the magical elements, and then control them to form magic to achieve interaction. Therefore, according to the naming habits of the scientists on Earth, it should be called simultaneous interaction. According to the consensus of the mages on the signs, being able to achieve this proved that the mage had the strength of a grand mage. Since Sue couldn't do this, it could only be said that he didn't have the strength of a great magician. Of course, this was also because he was too anxious. When he was at the Moon Shadow Tribe, Elder Lysania Shadowsong said that she had a method to quickly raise Sue's magic level. This method seemed very simple, but to Agnes, Delil, and Stasia, the three elves, it was the moon god's baptism that shocked them. As for the so-called moon god's baptism, it was nothing more than letting Sue soak in a cold bath for an hour in the moon well, the sacred ground of the Moon Shadow Tribe. Although when Sue was soaking in the moon well, He could clearly feel that his perception of the surrounding magical elements had greatly increased, but in reality, his magic power didn't increase at all. After soaking in the water for an hour, Su Yi's magic level didn't increase by leaps and bounds like he had imagined. Overall, the change wasn't that big. However, Su Yi didn't care about this at first. He came to the Moon Shadow tribe this time to seek cooperation, but he didn't expect to receive anything in return. Therefore, the effects of the Moon God's baptism that Elder Lysania's Shadow Song, Agnes, and the other elves treated so seriously wasn't something that he cared about. But since Elder Lysania's Shadow Song treated this matter so seriously and even said that Su Yi had a special physique, the effects of the Moon God's baptism were very good. After the Moon God's baptism, his magic power would quickly increase and be much stronger than before. Su Yi of course didn't think that Lysania's Shadow Song was deliberately tricking him, so he accepted this situation. Moreover, he would often carefully observe the changes in his body in the following days. After a period of time, Su Yi found that as an elf, Elder Lysania's Shadow Song didn't have the habit of lying to him. He could clearly feel that his perception of the surrounding magic was much more sensitive. When he was meditating, his magic power increased much faster. Moreover, compared to before, if he used the same spell, the amount of magic power he consumed and the speed at which he released the spell had greatly increased. To put it simply, although his strength didn't instantly increase, it was clear that he had obtained a large increase in speed and space. If Great Magician Camilla's judgment of Su Yi before was that if he was willing to focus on studying magic, he would become a great magician around the age of 40. Now that Su Yi had judged it himself, if he was willing to focus on studying magic, it was very likely that he would be able to advance this time by an entire 5 years. Becoming a great magician at the age of 35. This was rarely seen in the history of signs. However, Su Yi didn't care that much about this. Compared to increasing his magic power, what he placed more importance on was always creating a magic machine industrial system. Because he had to return to Banta City before the New Year's, Su Yi's inspection of the Principality of Constantine only lasted for less than a month and it went very smoothly overall. During this time, Su Yi mainly confirmed his cooperation with Head Wine before meeting with Duke Stantine again. After confirming the development of the 3 mines, he signed an agreement with Duke Stantine to have the new flyer build a road from the Black Rice Wasteland and the border of the Principality of Constantine to the capital of the Principality of Constantine. With the gold coins opening the way, Su Yi's requests were all satisfied. For example, he requested that some guards be sent to protect the 3 mines to prevent any accident. Duke Stantine and his ministers didn't object at all and allowed him to station no more than 200 guards in each mine. Of course, Su Yi also gave Duke Stantine 500,000 gold coins as a sponsorship fee for improving the safety of the Principality of Constantine. Adding in the small gifts he brought to Duke Stantine and his ministers, on this trip to the Principality of Constantine, the new flyer's total investment was close to 1,000,000 gold coins that couldn't be recorded in their accounts. Chairman Cruz, who knew of this, kept talking to Su Yi on the way, not understanding why he insisted on investing in a place like the Principality of Constantine. Instead of throwing money into a country with no future made up of greedy nobles and lazy subjects, it was better to use it in other places with a better future. For example, the 4 companies had already set up their bases in the Black Rice Wasteland. After making contact with the Beastmen, Chairman Cruz found that this place was much more promising than the Principality of Constantine. This was because these Beastmen weren't all as cruel and inhumane as he thought before. Actually, other than being different from humans on the outside, there were many Beastmen who had the same intelligence as humans. Even Beastmen like the Fox Clan and the Cat Clan had limbs that were as flexible as humans, so they could easily do some manual work. Compared to the human workers in Banta City, who earned over 10 gold coins a month, these beastmen who were hired only received a few gold coins a month, which made them very satisfied and happy. As for the other benefits, these beastmen didn't even think about it. Every time he thought of this, Chairman Cruz would give a deep sigh and complain to Sui. Sui shook his head. Actually, the workers of Banta City before had the same monthly wage as the beastmen. Moreover, they could have them work overtime and didn't need to be paid overtime or any other benefits. It's all because of the appearance of your new flyer that the workers of Banta City have become picky. Now if you hire any worker and don't give them 10 gold coins a month, they won't come back at all. Su Yi's response to this was very simple. Could it be that our Banta City companies aren't earning more money compared to before? Chairman Cruz couldn't refute this because Su Yi was speaking the truth. Although the cost of labor in Banta City had increased by quite a bit, it was because of this that the standard of living in Banta City had increased. There was a large demand for all kinds of products in Banta City, which greatly increased the business of all the companies in Banta City. In total, no matter what company it was, they were earning more money compared to before. Among them, the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce was the most representative. The current Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce was no longer a limited company that could only take on some construction projects in Banta City. Rather, it had over 20,000 employees and had construction teams all over the Lampari Kingdom, even reaching the Black Rice Wasteland, the Principality of Constantine, and the Kingdom of Ruhr. It had become the large international company that Su Yi had mentioned. Moreover, with the popularization of roads in the Lampari Kingdom, the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce's fame kept spreading with the construction of roads. It allowed more people to understand how powerful the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce was when it came to construction. Now the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce didn't just send construction teams for roads, they were also responsible for various construction projects. For example, after the city lords of several cities in the Lampari Kingdom learned of the vanilla orchid community in Banta City, after inspecting the environment and construction quality of the vanilla orchid community, they invited the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce to build the same community in those cities. It would be easier for them to plan their cities in the future, and they even directly sold them. On this basis, Su Yi's promise of opening a new source of profit for the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce was finally realized. Chapter 377. When they arrived at the falling rain valley, Su Yi jumped out of the horse carriage and said goodbye to Chairman Cruz. Su Yi didn't invite Chairman Cruz in to rest because he knew that Chairman Cruz must be thinking about the conversation he had with him on the way here, so he must be impatient to return to Banta City to investigate. Su Yi was even certain that once Chairman Cruz returned to Banta City, he would immediately go to the sandy river that he had just proposed to investigate. If nothing unexpected happened, he would immediately ask to see Count Stark. He would want to buy the land by the river and prepare to develop commercial housing. That's right, the new source of profit that Su Yi gave the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce was to develop commercial housing. Strictly speaking, this couldn't be considered completely new because developing commercial housing was something that the Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce was good at before, it was just an extension of it. But the concept of real commercial housing hadn't appeared in the Lampari Kingdom or the signs yet. This was because there were only a few people on the continent and most of the citizens were poor. Most people just needed a place to shelter them from the wind and rain, they didn't have any requirements for the quality of the housing. So when Su Yi proposed this concept, Chairman Cruz immediately opposed it. The Amsterdam Chamber of Commerce had been in the construction industry for many years, so of course they understood the construction industry in Banta City very well. Chairman Cruz knew that there was no market for commercial housing. But after Su Yi's analysis, Chairman Cruz's doubts gradually turned into determination. He didn't doubt Su Yi's words at all. Sue was right. It wasn't that the people of the continent didn't have a need for housing. But other than not having money before, another important reason was that there weren't any commercial housing suitable for normal citizens. Before this, because there was a large gap between the rich and poor on the signs, the large nobles and merchants were very rich. When they chose a place to live, they would buy several manors. It was very comfortable, so naturally it wasn't something that normal citizens could compare to. Normal citizens naturally couldn't afford a manor. Other than those large manors, the other residences were either broken straw huts that poor citizens lived in or normal two-story buildings made of bricks and wood, like the one Sue rented in Banta City before. These houses, no matter which one it was, Sue didn't think that they were suitable for humans to live in. So when he proposed this to the doubtful Chairman Cruz, he took out the new commercial housing design that he had Vivian draw when he was free. When he saw this new commercial housing design that Sue copied from the commercial housing design on Earth, Chairman Cruz, who had been in the construction industry for many years, saw the convenience and advancement of this design. The most important thing was that in this design, Sue had combined the concept of a magic room, using various household magic machines. He had placed a small magic pipe network in the room, which not only made the room beautiful, it also made living in it very convenient. Chairman Cruz's heart skipped a beat when he saw this design. Not only did he immediately agree to Sue's idea of investing in commercial housing, he even asked Sue to personally renovate the manor that he was living in, letting him enjoy the convenience of this new concept of a magic room. Sue naturally agreed. As for the concrete design, that would be up to the genius designer Vivian. As soon as Vivian's little face appeared in his mind, Vivian suddenly appeared in front of Sue. Seeing Vivian running over and the beautiful girl with a red face behind her, Sue was a bit surprised. He asked Vivian, who had already run in front of him, "Why are you here today? Don't you need to go to school?" Also, Sue thought for a bit before remembering that this beautiful girl who suddenly appeared behind Vivian wasn't Vivian's classmate, rather it was Teresa Ika, who had fainted on the streets of Banta City last time and was saved by him. "The school is already on vacation," Vivian replied with a smile. "Master, you must have been too busy during this time and forgot about the time, right? It's just a few days until New Year's. Why are you still going to school?" "Oh, right. I've been in the Principality of Constantine the entire time, and it was very warm there, so I didn't feel like it was New Year's at all." Sue patted his head and looked at Teresa Ika. "Young Miss Ika, I haven't been back during this time. Have you been well?" Since saving Teresa Ika, Sue had left her in the Falling Star Manor, letting Vivian, Liz, and Linda take care of her while he didn't care at all. This was Sue's second time meeting her in this long time. Compared to more than a month ago when he had just rescued her, her complexion was obviously much better now. She was no longer as weak as before, and her mood seemed to have improved as well. At least her expression had become calmer, but there was still no smile on her face. Seeing that Sue asked about her, Teresa Ika immediately bowed slightly and gave Sue a standard ladylike bow. She replied softly, "Thank you for your concern. I've been doing very well during this time." "Chairman Sue, I haven't thanked you yet. I'm deeply grateful for the help you gave me last time and saved me from a life-threatening situation. You don't have to be so polite, as long as you've been doing well during this time." Sue turned to look at Vivian. "Then Vivian, why did you come to the Falling Rain Valley with young Miss Ika today?" "Because I heard that Master is coming back today." Vivian smiled. "Teresa has always wanted to thank you in person. When she heard that you were coming back to the Falling Rain Valley today, she urged me to bring her here early in the morning. We have been waiting here for a few hours." "Oh? I already said that you don't have to be so polite." Sue shook his head and said to Teresa, "Young Miss Ika, you don't have to care too much about this matter. No matter who it is, they would have helped you when they saw you fainted on the street." This is what a normal person should do. It's nothing. No. There are many people who won't help you when you're in danger. Instead, they will push you into the abyss again. Teresa's face flashed with a trace of sadness. Sui couldn't help but frown slightly. He could see that Teresa must have encountered something tragic and was deeply affected by it. Otherwise, it would be impossible for a young miss from a noble family like her to fall into the situation of fainting on the street. Thinking of this, Sui couldn't help but secretly rejoice for her. For such a beautiful girl like her to escape to another city alone in this kind of situation was not easy. She must have suffered a lot on the way. Sui wanted to help her, but since she didn't want to say what kind of trouble she encountered, Sui naturally didn't want to force her to say it. Then, young Miss Ika, since you and Vivian are here, you can have fun here for 2 days. There are many interesting things in the Falling Rain Valley. I believe that you will have a good 2 days. After I'm done with these 2 days, I will go back to the Falling Star Manor with Steel to prepare for the new year. Sui hesitated for a moment before continuing. If you are willing, I would like to extend a sincere invitation to you in advance. I hope that you can stay here and spend the new year with us in the Falling Star Manor. Vivian on the side immediately clapped her hands excitedly. Look, Teresa, I told you that Master would definitely invite you to stay. Stay? You don't have anywhere to go right now, right? It will be so lively to spend the new year with us. I promise that you will be happy. Teresa Ika looked at Vivian and Sui. She hesitated for a moment before shaking her head. Chairman Su, thank you for your kindness. But I have already disturbed the Falling Star Manor for too long. How can I continue to disturb it? In fact, if it wasn't for the fact that I want to express my gratitude to Chairman Su, I would have left long ago. Where do you plan to go after you leave? Sui asked bluntly. If I continue to wander like this, I don't know when I will die on the side of the road. Young Miss Ika, I hope that you can consider your future. The past is the past. Teresa Ika raised her head and looked at Sui with a pair of big eyes full of confusion. Her expression was hesitant, but after a while she became determined. She clenched her teeth and nodded vigorously as if she was encouraging her decision. Chairman Su, I heard from Vivian. Your new flyer is recruiting magicians, right? Do you think I can do it? Sui was startled. He carefully looked at Teresa Ika and asked in surprise, You know magic? Yes. Teresa Ika nodded slightly. Although I have never participated in the certification examination of the Sorcerers Guild, my teacher told me that I should have the strength of a level 4 magician. Level 4 magician? Sui was even more surprised. From the appearance, Teresa Ika was even 1 or 2 years younger than Steel. Steel was only a level 4 magician a year or 2 ago. If Teresa Ika was also a level 4 magician, wouldn't she be a genius magician like Steel? Seeing that Sui still had some doubts, Teresa Ika raised her right hand. Sui immediately felt that the magic elements in the surrounding space began to fluctuate rapidly. After a moment, a strong whirlwind formed around Teresa Ika. The leaves and branches on the ground around her were all swept up by the whirlwind. Level 4 wind magic, whirlwind spell, not bad. Sui nodded with praise. From the whirlwind spell that Teresa Ika used, he could see that she indeed had the strength of a level 4 magician. Although she was not proficient in casting spells, she was very skilled in both magic and magic control. It could be seen that she had received a strict magic education. Very good, since you have the strength of a level 4 magician, then you are qualified to work in the Academy of Magic of our Chamber of Commerce. Vivian, take her to see Evita, she will know what to do. Seeing that Sui had basically agreed, Vivian excitedly replied in a loud voice. She grabbed Teresa Ika's hand and ran to the new flyer office in the center of the Falling Rain Valley. Teresa Ika couldn't help being pulled over by Vivian, but she didn't forget to turn back to nod at Sui. Seeing that Teresa Ika still didn't have a smile on her face, Su-yi gave a sigh and threw this matter to the back of his mind. He calmed his mind and became a bit excited again as he walked to the Magic Machine Development Center in the distance. Chapter 378. When he walked into the Magic Machine Development Center, Su-yi saw a group of dwarves and several human researchers gathered in a large circle in the center of the center. They were all holding their breaths as they focused on the center of the circle. And from the center of the circle, there were rhythmic sounds that came from it that made Su-yi feel a strong sense of familiarity. Hearing this sound, Su-yi was stunned for a bit before running over. He pushed aside the dwarves outside without any courtesy and peeked his head into the circle. In the circle, there was an iron plate supported by 4 wide tires. There was a strange-looking lump of iron placed on it, and the buzzing sound came from this lump of iron. As the lump of iron kept buzzing, it was like the 4 tires were being driven by something as they began to roll, carrying the iron plate and the lump of iron forward. There was also a circular track on the ground, and the tires kept running around the edge of the track, without any sign of stopping. Seeing this track that couldn't be any simpler and the iron plate supported by the tires, Su-yi was like he had seen a treasure. His eyes were filled with excitement as he forcefully patted Camby's shoulder, who had come over at an unknown time, and loudly praised, "Great! That's great! Camby, tell me, have you guys succeeded in your research?" Camby, the other dwarves, and the human researchers looked at each other, feeling a bit strange as to why Su-yi was this excited. After developing so many magic machines before, Su-yi had always been very calm. He would even give suggestions on how to improve the magic machines that had just been developed. It can't be considered a success, there are still many places that need to be improved. Su-yi didn't give any suggestions, but Camby took the initiative to do so. Then he asked in a curious voice, "Chairman, why are you this happy when you see this thing?" Su-yi laughed before patting Camby's shoulder and saying, "Because you don't understand how important this thing is. Let me tell you, you can say that I'm boasting when I say that the other magic machines will change the signs, but this thing can indeed change the entire world." Camby and the other researchers rolled their eyes in unison. They were tired of hearing the president's words. If what he said was true, then they had already developed so many magic machines. If each of them could change the entire world, then the world should have already been completely changed. But now they only ate, slept, and worked every day. It wasn't that different from before. No, if they thought about it carefully, without knowing it, the magic machines had already begun to silently change their lives. Take the most normal meal, they could already use the magic rice cooker, the magic bread maker, and the magic stove to make it. They didn't need to waste energy like before, wasting time making a fire to cook. Speaking of sleeping, first you could use the magic water heater to easily take a hot bath before sleeping. You didn't need to spend half a day boiling water before taking a bath like before, so you could comfortably prepare to sleep. Next, because of the magic air conditioner, no matter how hot the summer was or how cold the winter was, the room would still be at room temperature. It was much better than when they slept before. Even if it was work, first not mentioning that they were researching magic machines, just the road to work was paved. Whether it was speed or comfort when riding a horse carriage, it was much better. But speaking of the speed of the horse carriage, everyone looked at the iron plate that was steadily moving back and forth. They thought that if this thing was really developed like Sir Chairman requested, it would be able to easily crush horse carriages in terms of speed. "Hey, Camby, have you tested the stability of the wind magic engine yet?" Su-yi observed the operation of the iron plate with the wind magic engine on it for a while before asking this to Camby. We've done it," Camby replied with a nod. "According to the stability test we did before, this machine can maintain 1,000 revolutions per minute for 3 days without any problems." "Not bad." Su-yi couldn't help praising. "Then what about the power test? What is the maximum power output?" Hearing this question, Canby revealed a look of surprise. He looked at Sui with a look of admiration. "Sir Chairman, I have to say, this magic engine really is great. According to our tests, the maximum output power of this experimental machine, which has yet to meet your requirements, is equivalent to the pulling force of 3 horses." Sui knit his brows. The maximum power output is only 3 horsepower? That's still far from enough. You're still not satisfied with this? Canby had an astonished look on his face. Canby revealed a look of surprise. "Only this small machine has the power output equal to 3 horses. Could it be that you're only satisfied if it's equal to 10 horses? Even if it's equal to 10 horses, I'm still not satisfied." Sui shook his head and muttered this. To Sui, who had transmigrated from Earth, although 3 horses wasn't equal to 3 horsepower, even if it was equal to 3 horses, it wasn't considered that big of a deal. The engines on Earth were more than equivalent to the pulling force of 3 horses. The output power of those large engines was comparable to that of 300 or even 3,000 horses. What was a mere 3 horses compared to that of 3 horses? Of course, he knew that the engine research in science had just begun. Canby and the others being able to develop a stable wind magic engine was already enough to excite him. So Sui looked at Canby and the other researchers whose faces had turned ugly because of what he had just said. He threw his desire for a high-power engine to the side and loudly said to everyone with a laugh, "Although I'm not satisfied with the current output of this machine, I'm very clear that this is just the beginning. With your cooperation, I firmly believe that there will be a magic engine that I'm satisfied with in the future that will have a higher power output. Are you confident?" Canby and the other researchers immediately waved their fists and loudly said, "Of course." "Good. In order to reward you for developing the world's first magic engine, I represent the company to give each of you a second-level reward. 300 gold coins for each person." After the researchers were stunned, they instantly broke out in giant cheers that shook the earth. In particular, the dwarves led by Canby were roaring incessantly in excitement. For a moment, their cheers were so loud that the roof of the R&D center was about to collapse. When everyone's most excited moment was over, Sui raised his hands to signal for everyone to calm down before continuing. "Of course, there's still a bit of time before this machine is finished. What I want to see the most right now is when you can finish the magic engine and complete the dream that I've had for many years. How about it? Are you confident in making it?" Yes. With the stimulation of the reward, the researchers were even more excited and their answers were even more powerful this time. Sui laughed and pulled Canby over to discuss the details of the magic engine with him before leaving the development center. After leaving the development center, Sui was hit by the cold air outside and woke up from his wild state. However, he was still very excited. Although when he received the notice and learned that there was a major breakthrough in the Magic Machine Development Center, he could vaguely guess that there was a breakthrough in the development of the magic engine. But after personally seeing this machine, Sui was still very excited and even lost his composure a bit. This was because he knew better than anyone how important the development of the magic engine was to the development of the industrial system. It wasn't exaggerated to say that the modern industry on Earth revolved around the magic engine. With the magic engine providing all kinds of power, the various machines in the modern industry could complete a series of complicated tasks that couldn't be done by human hands. Although the output of this machine was far from enough, and there was a large difference in other aspects compared to the magic engine on Earth, being able to develop this complete machine meant that Sui's idea of the magic engine was correct, and they could keep researching based on this idea. After solving this most important problem, they just needed to research and improve the various details of the magic engine. In the end, they would naturally be able to create an engine that was as powerful as the engines on Earth. At that time, the entire Signs continent would undergo a heaven and earth-shaking change. It wouldn't be like this because of the distance of several hundred miles, which was like the end of the world. It would be completely blocked and the flow wouldn't be smooth. Thinking of how Chairman Cruz had asked him about the development of the magic car on the way back, Sui couldn't help revealing a faint smile. Now that this machine had been developed, he believed that it wouldn't take long before Chairman Cruz and the Fersen Carriage Company's Chairman Pompey's problem would be solved. But to solve this problem, just the magic engine was far from enough. There were many other important problems that needed to be solved. Sui thought about it before heading to Great Magician Camilla's lab. Chapter 379. When he opened the door to the private laboratory, he saw Great Magician Camilla holding two steel plates that were around 10 centimeters long, 5 centimeters wide, and 1 centimeter thick in his left hand. He was putting the two steel plates together, and his right hand was holding a strange-looking little tool that was slowly moving from top to bottom along the gap between the two steel plates. He couldn't see what Great Magician Camilla was doing from the door, but when he turned to the lab table and looked at it, he found that as the little tool in Great Magician Camilla's hand moved, the steel around the gap between the two steel plates quickly melted. When the tool moved away, the melted steel quickly condensed again. When the tool went from the top to the bottom of the gap, the two steel plates were tightly joined together. Sui took the two steel plates from Great Magician Camilla's hands and shook them, finding that the two steel plates were tightly joined together. They didn't shake at all because of his actions, just like they were already joined together. "Grandfather, you really are powerful. You actually made another breakthrough in this short period of time. Looking at it now, this magic welding technology should have taken shape, right?" Sui praised. Great Magician Camilla gave a sigh and shook his head. He took the two steel plates from Sui's hands and forcefully pulled them apart. Pa! With a crisp sound, the two steel plates that seemed tightly joined were pulled apart. Great Magician Camilla looked at Sui from the side and said to him, "Do you see this? The current melting layer can only reach a depth of 3 millimeters, so there is no way to weld the two steel plates together. So this welding technology can't be considered complete at all." Sui took the two steel plates and reconnected them. Looking around, he couldn't help smiling. "Grandfather, I never thought that your research would progress this quickly, so I forgot to remind you. If you want to weld these two steel plates, just relying on these two steel plates isn't enough. It's too hard to melt and weld the two steel plates together, so you need to use a welding wire to meet this requirement." "Welding wire?" Sui looked around and took out a thin steel bar from the scrap iron plates on the ground for Great Magician Camilla. "Why don't you try using this as a welding wire and let it melt into the welding seam and see how it works?" Great Magician Camilla took the thin steel wire and carefully considered it for a bit. Then he placed the two steel plates back on the table and placed them side by side. Then his left hand held the steel wire in the gap between the two steel plates and the small tool in his right hand. He poked his head into the gap between the steel wire and the two steel plates. The probe lit up with a dark yellow light again. The thin steel bar instantly melted into molten steel and penetrated into the gap between the two steel plates. Then, it merged with the molten steel around the gap. Great Magician Camilla carefully controlled the steel rod and probe to slowly move it down. When the steel rod was completely used up, only 2/3 of the two steel plates were welded and there was still a part that hadn't been welded yet. Sui quickly handed over the other steel rod he had found beforehand. After Great Magician Camilla took it, he moved a bit faster and finished welding the remaining 1/3 of the steel plate. After stopping his hands, Great Magician Camilla carefully looked over the steel plates that had been welded together. He found that compared to the experiment just now, the two steel plates were much more firmly joined together. He picked up the welded steel plates and used both hands to try and break them apart, but he found that they wouldn't move at all. Even if he used all his strength, he couldn't break them apart like before. "This is more like it," Great Magician Camilla gave a satisfied nod as he handed the steel plate to Sui. Can you try and see if you can break them apart? If a young man like you can't break them apart, then you should be able to. Sui shook his head. I'm not that much stronger than you. If you can't break them apart with this much strength, then I can't either. Then this welding technique is considered complete? Great Magician Camilla asked. That isn't certain. Sui took the steel plate and pulled over a table. There was a bit of space between the table and the table as he placed the steel plate in the center. He then picked up a larger steel plate from the ground and forcefully smashed it down. King! With a clear sound, the two steel plates that were welded together were smashed apart. They fell off the table at the same time and fell to the ground with a clear sound. A trace of disappointment appeared on Great Magician Camilla's face. If this isn't enough, what should we do? Sui picked up the two steel plates with a smile. After looking at them, he turned to Great Magician Camilla and said, Look, there are still bubbles inside, so the welding isn't perfect. As long as these small problems are solved, the quality of the welding can be guaranteed. But I feel that even if it's like this, it can't be that firm. If it receives a strong impact, it will still fall off. Great Magician Camilla said with a frown. Could it be that this magic welding technique is still useless in the end? Sui laughed before shaking his head and saying, Grandfather, you can't be discouraged. This magic welding technique isn't useless, rather it is very important. Your welding technique isn't up to standard, so the quality of the welding is quite poor, resulting in this result. In this aspect, I feel that you aren't that good at it. Rather, those blacksmiths and dwarven craftsmen are better at it. So I feel that in the following research, you can cooperate with them. That's right. Great Magician Camilla nodded. Great Magician Camilla nodded. I'm just a bit better at magic, but I can't compare to those craftsmen when it comes to smelting. That's right. Then again, magic welding doesn't require the metal plates to be connected together. Most of the time, it's just for connecting and sealing, so it won't be impacted by strong forces, so the requirements aren't that high. Sui then said. Then again, this technique has a lot of room for improvement, so you don't need to be anxious. How can I not be anxious? Great Magician Camilla glared at Sui. Camby and the others have already developed the magic engine, and I still haven't solved the problem of welding. Isn't that embarrassing? So that means that in terms of practical operation, you don't need to study this field. Your main work is in this. Sui picked up the small tool that Great Magician Camilla had placed on the test bench. This magic welding gun is the thing you need to seriously study. Based on the current situation, it has already been considered a success. Next, all you need to do is to engrave the Transformers array on the magic welding torch and give a specific design of the array. As for the details of the design, Camby and the others will take care of it. Why do I feel that I'm very useless when you say this? Great Magician Camilla said with a frown. How is that possible? Sui quickly refuted in a loud voice. Grandfather, we are studying magic machines and magic is the most important thing. How could you be useless? If it wasn't for you researching this magic array, this magic welding gun wouldn't have appeared at all. So you are the one who played the most important role, no one else can compare to you. Alright, stop flattering me, I know what I'm doing. Although Great Magician Camilla glared at Sui, he was still amused by Sui. He asked with a smile, I still haven't asked you, what was the result of your trip to the Principality of Constantine this time? Did it go smoothly? Sui gave a shrug. In front of the great gold pioneer, what problem can't be solved? What? How many gold coins did those greedy fellows ask you for? Sui said with a bitter smile. It would be better if they directly asked for it, but the problem is that they still care about face, so they only hinted at it and didn't give me a specific number. In the end, I had to guess their real thoughts many times and was afraid that they would be unhappy if I gave them too little money. AI, it really makes me cry. These days, it's so tiring to give people money. Humph, those fellows will sell the entire principality of Constantine sooner or later. Great magician Camilla looked at Sui and pointed at him as he said, "Perhaps you'll be the one to buy it in the end. If possible, I really want to buy it all," Sui said with a smile. Although the people of the Principality of Constantine aren't that good, whether it is in terms of location or natural resources, it is very good. If I could have this place as my territory, that would be great. You think I don't know what kind of tricks you're playing? Great magician Camilla gave a cold snort. Great magician Camilla gave a cold snort. In my opinion, you've already set your eyes on this place and will get it sooner or later, right? But that's also good. In the name of those greedy nobles, it's better for you to get it. At least you're willing to work hard for normal citizens to live a good life. If everyone in the Lampari kingdom, alright, as long as Count Stark can understand my painstaking efforts like you, how much better would that be? Sui said in an emotional voice. In your dreams, his granddaughter isn't married to you. Great magician Camilla rolled his eyes and suddenly said, "But I've heard that Count Stark has an unmarried daughter who's 27 this year. Are you interested?" Sui waved his hand. "Grandfather, don't make this kind of joke. If I really had other thoughts, not to mention steel, wouldn't you be the first to get rid of me?" Humph, it's good that you know. Great magician Camilla turned back to work on the table, but he spat out, "That little girl named Teresa, Steele already knows about her. You can decide for yourself." Sui couldn't help muttering that he was wronged in the end. He had only met Teresa twice. The reason for this misunderstanding was probably because he had left Teresa in the Falling Star Manor. After thinking about it, Sui immediately bid farewell to Great Magician Camilla and headed to the new Academy of Magic in the Falling Rain Valley. Chapter 380. This year's New Year's, Banta City was much more deserted compared to the past 2 years. In the past 2 years, because of Banta City's economic development, there were many people from other cities that came to Banta City to look for work. At its peak, Banta City had over 200,000 people registered, and there were at least 30,000 people who weren't registered. Compared to the 50,000 people in Banta City before, it was several times more. Although many people would rush back home during the New Year's, many people felt that it was too far, so they wouldn't go back. They would stay in Banta City to celebrate the New Year's, or they would work during the New Year's, trying to earn a higher wage than normal for a few days. So Banta City had been very lively during New Year's 2 years ago. Whether it was people or goods, they were all rich. The bustling scene even made Hannes, who came to Banta City, sigh that Banta City wasn't worse than Anvilmar City. But all of this stopped with the arrival of Count Stark. Because of Count Stark's agricultural promotion policies, the companies of Banta City all moved out, bringing the workers of the companies with them. Other than the workers who came from other cities, there were even many workers from Banta City who weren't willing to give up their jobs and left Banta City. Looking out the window of the city lord's manor, seeing the deserted streets and Banta City that didn't seem lively at all, Count Stark couldn't help giving a deep sigh. Turning back to his desk, he picked up a document and looked it over. Count Stark's knitted brows became even deeper. This document was Banta City's annual revenue report. According to the report, Banta City's annual revenue was 1,170,000 gold coins, which was a bit lower than last year. Although it didn't seem like it fell by much, based on the monthly figures, one could see that Banta City's revenue from January to July had been increasing. Just in these 7 months, the revenue added together was close to 1,000,000 gold coins. However, after August, this number had greatly decreased, and it kept decreasing in the following month. There was even a deficit in the last 2 months, causing the final 5 months' revenue to be less than 200,000 gold coins. According to this trend, Banta City would be in the red next year. If it was like this, Even if Count Stark was confident in maintaining a strong harvest next year, a city that was always in the red would only receive negative marks in the royal parliament. With this result, it basically meant that his experiment in Banta City had failed. The most important thing was that his failure represented the failure of the conservative faction led by the Stark family. This was something that Count Stark couldn't accept. The problem was there a way to solve this problem? Count Stark looked at the report in his hand and he was a bit hesitant. Actually, in the past few years, although Banta City didn't have a high income, it wasn't to the point of having a deficit. The reason why there was a deficit this year was because Count Stag had invested large amounts of his income into transforming Banta City's farmland and planting crop. Moreover, in order to obtain shocking results for the fall harvest, he had spent a large amount of gold coins in secret deals with the Drake Duchy. Although he couldn't take this money out of Banta City's own revenue, in order to make up for this loss, he couldn't avoid taking some money from other places as compensation. This meant that if he wanted to maintain the same harvest as this year's fall harvest, Banta City's deficit couldn't be improved. But to solve this problem, the most feasible method that Count Stark knew was to restore the policies that Satsuma Count had when he was city lord and support business development. That way, Banta City's tax revenue would return to the same level as 2 years ago. But not to mention that Count Stark wasn't willing to do this. Even if he was willing, how could the companies that had been driven out of Banta City by his agricultural promotion policies come back because of a single word from him? Thinking of this, Count Stark couldn't help giving a bitter laugh. Actually, when he learned that he was about to become Banta City's city lord, he had done some research on Banta City. The reason why Banta City could develop so quickly in just 2 years was because of the development of the magic machine industry led by the Shinfei Chamber of Commerce. From an objective standpoint, Count Stark as the city lord would definitely be the same as Count Satsuma. He would choose to support and promote the new flyer and the magic machine industry, speeding up Banta City's rapid development. But Count Stark couldn't stand from an objective standpoint, so even if he wasn't willing, he had no choice but to oppose Sui and the new flyer as soon as he came to Banta City. He even issued a series of agricultural promotion policies to ensure that the ideas of the kingdom's conservatives that he represented were correct. Now, the bitter fruit of this idea was bitten by Count Stag first, to the point that even he began to doubt this idea. Just guaranteeing enough food would satisfy the citizens of the kingdom and allow them to live peacefully? Looking at the Shinfei brand magic air conditioner hanging in his office, Count Stark revealed a bitter smile as he fell into deep thought. However, this thought didn't last long as there was a knock on the door of the office. Count Stark calmed himself down and sat back down in his chair before saying in a deep voice, "Come in." When the door opened, Count Stark's secretary came in and reported in a low voice, "Lord City Lord, the new flyer's chairman Su is here to see you." Count Stark was stunned. Why did Sui choose to meet him today? After considering it, Count Stark nodded. "Let him come in." The secretary looked at Count Stark in surprise before leaving with a sound of response. After a while, the door opened again and Sui was led into the office by the secretary. After Sui and Count Stark exchanged greetings, the secretary closed the door and had Sui stay behind to meet with Count Stark alone. Sit. Perhaps it was because of the thoughts that had just appeared in his mind, Count Stark pointed at the chair in front of his desk and took the initiative to show courtesy to Sui for the first time. Sui revealed a faint smile and didn't act polite. After thanking him, he sat down and said to Count Stark, "Lord City Lord, I thought that you would return to Anvilmar City for the New Year's, but I never thought that you would stay in the City Lord's manor. You really can be considered a responsible City Lord." Count Stark gave a cold snort. If this came from anyone else, I would treat it as a poor flattery, but if it came from you, I would only find it ironic. "You think that I am a good city lord? What a joke." Sui shook his head. Although I don't agree with the Lord City Lord's ideas, this isn't related to your responsibility. My praise comes from the bottom of my heart. That's enough. Don't talk nonsense to me. Even you won't believe it. Count Stark waved his hand. He looked at Sue-Yi and asked, "Why did you suddenly come looking for me today? Just say it, there's no meaning in beating around the bush." "Alright, then I'll just say it." Sue-Yi was silent for a bit before continuing, "Lord City Lord, I came this time to discuss the agricultural development of Banta City next year with you." "You want to discuss agricultural development with me?" Count Stark looked at Sue-Yi in a daze, like he had heard a giant joke. "Chairman Sue, could it be that it isn't enough for your new flyer to just produce magic machines and you also want to meddle in grain production?" Faced with Count Stark's taunting tone, Sue-Yi's expression didn't change as he said with a faint smile, "If I have a method to increase Banta City's grain production, does the Lord City Lord think that I'm qualified?" Count Stark knit his brows before saying with a cold smile, "You have this method? What a joke. Our Stark family has several hundred years of history in agricultural production. Could it be that we can't compare to a young person like you who isn't even 30 yet? Lord City Lord, I think that even if it is you, you can't deny that the agricultural magic machines I developed have a large effect on increasing grain production, right?" Sue-Yi asked back. Count Stark's expression froze. This was something that he couldn't refute because even if he targeted Sue-Yi and New Flyer, at the crucial time of the fall harvest, he still had to borrow the power of the agricultural magic machines Sue-Yi developed and produced by New Flyer. It could even be said that without the agricultural magic machines, Banta City's grain harvest would plummet. Thinking of this, Count Stark's expression relaxed a bit as he asked Sue-Yi, "What? What kind of new agricultural magic machine has your Frestek Chamber of Commerce developed?" "No," Sue-Yi replied with a shake of his head. Count Stark was instantly enraged. "Then are you here to make fun of me?" "No, how could I dare do this?" Sue-Yi quickly waved his hand. "Lord City Lord, the agricultural magic machines can only help open up farmland, but they can't increase the yield of the farmland. I came looking for you this time to tell you that I have a method to increase the yield of the farmland." "How is that possible?" Count Stark gave a snort with a look of disbelief. "Our Count Stark has several hundred years of experience in grain production. How could there be a method that we don't know that you know?" Sue-Yi laughed. "Lord City Lord, I admit that the Stark family behind you has several hundred years of history in grain production, but compared to the elves' thousands of years of history, isn't it insignificant?" "Elves?" Count Stark was stunned as his gaze looking at Sue-Yi became serious. "You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.